She went downstairs into the kitchen. A bowl was upside down on the stove with a note tucked underneath it. It was her mother's handwriting, characteristically concise. Porridge is in the pot. Steamed buns are in the steamer. I've gone to work. I'll be back this evening. When Jingshu flipped the note over, the back was blank. Her father had left no note. That was strange. Even if he got off work at 3 in the morning, her father would always leave a note in the kitchen that read, "Daughter, I'm home," followed by a little drawn smiley face. There was nothing today. It meant her father had not come home last night at all. When Jingshu sat down holding her porridge bowl and ate as she thought, her father must be handling a major case. A case big enough to keep him from writing a note or coming home could not be some trivial theft. But there was nothing she could do. Her father was the police chief. Catching criminals was his job. All she could do was simmer soup and keep meals ready at home so there would be something hot waiting for him when he returned. After eating, she cleaned up the kitchen and went upstairs to write letters. On her desk lay a stack of writing paper with 7 envelopes piled beside it. The first letter was to Sun Huihui. Sun Huihui was her university classmate. Her family worked for the provincial-level food company. Her father was a deputy manager with real authority. When Jingshu picked up her pen and wrote, "Huihui, your letter finds me well." When she finished, she added another line. "By the way, if you need anything at all, just tell me. I haven't officially started work yet, but I still have some connections. We're such close friends, don't stand on ceremony with me." By the time she finished all 7 letters, her wrist ached. She folded each sheet of paper, slipped them into their envelopes, and sealed the flaps with paste. Next, she prepared the items to send along with the letters. She pulled goods out of her system warehouse: 7 boxes of dragon whisker pastries, 7 towels, 7 bars of laundry soap, and 7 jean of red dates. She divided everything into 7 equal portions. She lined up the 7 parcels across the table and stepped back to look. She was satisfied. Favors did not show their worth in ordinary times, but they could prove invaluable in critical moments. Every seed she planted now might one day grow into a money-bearing tree. The post office was the same one as before, though Li Xiaomei was not behind the counter today. There were few customers, and she finished her errand without queuing. Back home, she struggled over what to eat. She did not feel like cooking anything complicated. When eating alone, she preferred to make do. She rummaged in her system warehouse and pulled out a bag of instant noodles, part of the large batch she had snapped up previously, of which quite a few remained. She also took out vacuum-packed spicy lamb hooves she had bought the night before, for hooves per bag. She cooked the instant noodles. She ladled the noodles into a bowl, then thought for a moment and arranged the lamb hooves on top. Red chili oil, green chopped scallions, white noodles, and dark reddish-brown lamb hooves. Carrying the bowl, she sat down at the square table in the main room and ate by herself. The broth from the lamb hooves seeped into the noodle soup, turning an ordinary bowl of instant noodles into a Northwestern-style spicy lamb hoof noodle dish. The noodles soaked up the rich broth, every strand coated in spicy, meat-filled fragrance. She slurped up the entire bowl, drinking down even the soup. She planned to spend the afternoon reading. She could not count entirely on the system. What if the system malfunctioned someday? What if its abilities stopped working? She could not afford to stand helpless in front of Gao Changhe. So she needed to study for real. From her desk, she picked up Trade Economics, opening it to the page she had marked with a folded corner. A notebook lay open beside it. She read slowly, taking notes as she went. She wrote the whole afternoon. Then she set down her pen, leaned back in her chair, and stared blankly at the ceiling for a while. She missed Professor Chen. When Professor Chen had taught her, he had never simply read straight from textbooks. One of his favorite sayings was, "What you find in books is food others have already chewed. You must chew it yourself and find your own understanding." She closed the book and glanced out the window. Reading all afternoon had strained her eyes. She rubbed them, stood up, and stretched her neck. Her bones creaked, like a rusty door hinge. It was time to make dinner. She had just set the food on the table when the courtyard gate creaked. "I'm home." Lin Qingyuan's voice drifted in from the yard, heavy with exhaustion. When Jingshu went out to greet her and took the document bag from her mother's hand. "Mom, how was your day?" "Fine. The meeting is over, and I handed in the research report." Lin Qingyun changed her shoes and walked into the main room. Seeing the food on the table, she raised her eyebrows. "Did you cook this?" "Of course I did." As mother and daughter talked, the courtyard gate creaked once more. When Yenha pushed inside, holding an oil paper parcel, which he set down on the table. The hospital cafeteria made braised beef today. I managed to grab a piece. When Jingshu opened the wrapping, thick slices of braised beef glowed deep reddish brown, smelling wonderfully savory. She could not resist pinching off a slice and popping it into her mouth. Chewing, her eyes crinkled with delight. Delicious. Second brother, you're really something, getting hold of cafeteria braised beef. Naturally. I'm on good terms with old Lou in the cafeteria. When Yenha sat down and filled a bowl with rice. He knew my sister was waiting for her job assignment and having a hard time, so he set this aside for me. Who's having a hard time? When Jingshu mumbled around her mouthful of beef. I'm in perfectly good spirits. All right, you're in great spirits. When Yenha shook his head, smiling. After dinner, when Yenha washed the dishes, Lin Qingjun went upstairs to rest. Before she went up, when Jingshu gave her the children's face cream she had forgotten to hand over earlier. This time Lin Qingjun asked no questions. When Jingshu sat on the stone bench beneath the jujube tree and tilted her head to look at the sky. When Yenha came out after finishing the dishes and sat down beside her, also gazing upward. What are you thinking about? Second brother, if I really get into the purchasing section, will I have to travel often? Most likely. When Yenha thought for a moment. People in purchasing are always running off somewhere. If you're afraid of traveling, I'm not afraid, when Jingshu cut in. I was just wondering if I'm away on business, it'll be you and mom and dad at home. Who will cook for you? When Yenha fell silent for a second, then laughed and ruffled her hair. You worry too much. You haven't even gotten the post yet, and you're already fretting over cooking at home. I'm just planning ahead. Besides, none of you get off work at fixed times. You're all so busy. Coming home and cooking would be tiring. Don't concern yourself with household matters. We managed fine when you were studying in the provincial city. Mom can cook, and so can I. Dad can't cook, but he's good at eating. Even if you're traveling, we won't starve. When Jingshu nodded and said no more. Let's go inside. It's getting cold out. When Yenha stood, grabbed the back of her collar, and lifted her off the stone bench as if lifting a kitten. Second brother. I can walk by myself. You walk too slowly. Dragged by her collar toward the house, when Jingshu's feet dragged across the ground. She looked exactly like a cat being lifted by the scruff of its neck. The next morning, when Jingshu leaned on the windowsill and took a deep breath, she glanced down at the clothes she had hung out to dry the day before. Strong winds overnight had blown one sock onto the brick ground. She glanced at it and decided to pretend she had not seen it. She had more important things to do than pick up a sock. The flash sale. Yesterday's flash sale had been disappointing. Over 2 sessions, she had drawn 15 items, all household electrical appliances, none of which were useful to her. Thinking of that, she buried her face in her quilt and mumbled, "System, can you please give me some practical goods?" At 7:59, she started tapping her foot nervously. 8 o'clock sharp. Ding. A light blue and white virtual screen popped open before her eyes. Current time goods remaining time, 59 minutes 58 seconds. China's a medicinal herb gum protecting toothpaste 180g/tube times 100 units system price, 8 yuan per tube actual deduction. 0.08 yuan product description, contains extracts of pseudo-ginseng, scutellaria root, honeysuckle. Protects gums, strengthens teeth, freshens breath. Fine paste, rich foam. Shelf life, 36 months. Toothpaste. At supply and marketing cooperatives, a tube of toothpaste cost roughly 30 cents and required industrial coupons. On the black market, it might sell for as much as 1 yuan, and supplies were unreliable. Hardly hesitating, when Jingshu tapped buy all. A prompt appeared on the screen, payment successful. Total payment, 8 yuan. Goods stored in system warehouse and may be retrieved at any time. 100 tubes of toothpaste for 8 yuan. When Jingshu retrieved 1 tube from the warehouse and turned it over in her hands, it looked much like the high-grade toothpaste available in this era. The rationalize origin function worked wonderfully. Satisfied, she set the new tube on her washstand and pushed the old, nearly a stub toothpaste to one side. Out with the old, in with the new. She went downstairs. The main room was quiet. A bowl sat upside down on the square table, a note tucked underneath. Her mother's handwriting. Porridge is in the pot. Steamed buns are in the steamer. I'll eat at the cafeteria at noon. Your second brother is on night shift today. When Jingshu flipped the note over, the reverse was blank. Her father still had left no note. She sat down, peeled an egg, and ate a bowl of porridge with shredded pickled vegetables. Her first errand was to go to Shin Ji-hung's house. She pushed her bicycle out of the courtyard, mounted it, and turned into the narrow alley. When no one was around, she pulled goods out of her system warehouse: 20 tubes of toothpaste, 20 towels, 50 pork rib sausages. These were restock supplies for Shin Ji-hung. His previous batch should have been nearly sold out. When she arrived, Shin Ji-hung was squatting beside the stone table in his yard, talking to a teenage boy. The boy was roughly Shin Ji-hung's age, 15 or 16. He stood half a head shorter than Shin Ji-hung, but broad-shouldered and sturdy built. He had a round face and dark skin, and he looked at people with earnest, simple-hearted candor. "Sis, you're here." Shin Ji-hung stood up and jerked his chin toward the boy. "This is Zhao Junyi. I've told you about him." Zhao Junyi rose to his feet. "Hello, sis. I'm Zhao Junyi." "Hello." When Jingshu sat down on the stone bench and set her cloth satchel on the table. "Ji-hing told me you supply the goods," Zhao Junyi said with the solemnity peculiar to teenage boys. "He says he trusts you, and he trusts me. So, I want to work with you. What is your family situation?" Zhao Junyi lowered his head. "My father was sent down to the countryside. My mother remarried and moved to the next county. She doesn't look after me anymore. I live alone in the house my father was assigned before he left, in the eastern part of town." He paused, then added quietly, "Before my father left, he told me not to resent my mother. I don't resent her. I just want to survive." For a moment, silence hung over the yard. Shin Ji-hung said nothing, but his jaw tightened. "Very well," she said. "If Ji-hing trusts you, I trust you. Let Ji-hing settle your pay. I won't interfere. But there are 2 rules. First, keep your mouth shut. No matter who asks where the goods come from, your answer is only 3 words. I don't know. Do not talk, even if threatened. Second, safety comes first. Earning more money is secondary. No one can get hurt. You two are still boys. If something goes wrong, neither you nor I can handle the consequences. Sell less rather than take foolish risks." Zhao Junyi nodded hard. When Jingshu pulled goods out of her satchel, tube after tube of toothpaste, towels, and pork rib sausages were neatly laid out across the stone table. Each time she set something down, Shin Ji-hung jotted it in his notebook. Zhao Junyi watched, his eyes growing wider and wider. When he saw the 20 tubes of toothpaste, he could not help reaching out to touch them, then pulled his hand back. He looked up at Wen Jingshu. "Sis, what's the purchase price for this toothpaste? You can set your own selling price. The cost price for you is 80 cents per tube." Zhao Junyi's eyes nearly popped out of his head. When Jingshu suddenly remembered something. "Ji-hing. Have you heard any talk lately about unrest or trouble out there when you go out at night?" Shin Ji-hing's hand froze. "Sis, how did you hear about that?" When Jingshu's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" she asked. Shin Ji-hing lowered his voice. "Word is spreading on the black market that things have gotten dangerous lately. A killer is said to have drifted over from the south. He has passed through 2 counties already. He targets well-off people." When Jingshu's fingers tightened involuntarily. "When did this start?" "Just these past few days. I only heard yesterday." When Jingshu stood up. "What time do you go out at night?" "A little after 11. That's when the black market is busiest." "Don't go for the time being," When Jingshu said, her tone admitting no argument. "You can sell fewer goods, but you cannot risk your life. You have Jiwan to look after. What would become of her if something happened to you?" Shin Ji-hing nodded. "I'll listen to you." Leaving Shin Ji-hung's house, when Jingshu rode her bicycle toward the Public Security Bureau. Her mind was heavy. The killer Shin Ji-hung had spoken of troubled her deeply. Her father had not come home for 2 days. Could this be the case he was working on? She needed to check on him. Passing a quiet lane, she stopped and pulled goods from her system warehouse: 10 salted duck eggs, 2 apples, 2 spicy lamb loaves, 2 boxes of dragon whisker pastries. The Public Security Bureau stood beside the county government, a 2-story gray brick building with a white sign with black characters reading Qingping County Public Security Bureau hanging above the gate. Several bicycles were parked in the courtyard, alongside a green 3-wheeled motor cart bearing the characters Public Security painted on its cargo compartment. When Jingshu pushed her bicycle into the yard and propped it in the bike shed, Old Lee from the gatekeeper's booth poked his head out the window, squinted at her, and smiled. "Chief Wen's daughter? Here to see your father." "Hello, Uncle Lee. Is my father in?" "He's here. 2nd floor, the office at the far end." "Go on up. He hasn't gone out today." When Jingshu thanked him and climbed the stairs. The door of the farthest office on the second floor stood slightly ajar, a thin line of light spilling out through the crack. She knocked. "Come in," Wen Zhangping's deep, hoarse voice answered from inside, heavy with the fatigue of sleepless nights. When Jingshu pushed the door open, the office was small. A wooden desk against the wall was piled with folders and enamel mugs. A map of Qingping County hung on the wall, marked with several red circles and small handwritten notes beside them. When Zhangping sat behind the desk, his eyes were shot with blood, his eye bags swollen like walnuts, and dark stubble covered his jaw. Seeing her, he froze for a moment, then sat up straight at once, straightened his uniform collar, and pushed the ashtray aside, as if he could hide the evidence of a whole night of smoking. "Jingshu? What brings you here?" "I came to see you." When Jingshu set her satchel on the desk and took out the food one item at a time. "I brought you something to eat. Oil-rich salted duck eggs, sweet apples, braised lamb hoofs to try, and dragon whisker pastries for you to nibble when you're hungry." His Adam's apple bobbed. "Child," he said, his voice thick. "You shouldn't spend money like this." When Jingshu sat down across from him, resting her chin in her hands. "Dad, you didn't come home last night." Mom won't say it out loud, but she's worried. "When will you be able to get back?" When Zhangping set the lamb hoofs down and slowly rewrapped the oil paper, as if weighing his words. "Soon," he said. "Once this case is solved, I can come home." "What kind of case is it?" When Zhangping stayed silent for several seconds, then sighed and leaned back in his chair, as if all his strength had left him. The municipal government sent a notice. A fugitive drifted over from the south. He has killed multiple people across 3 counties. He targets wealthy people, people walking alone at night, and... He paused and looked at Wen Jingshu. There was an expression in his eyes she had never seen on her father's face before, fear. Young women traveling alone. Wen Jingshu's fingers tightened slightly on her knees. "So, for these next few days, don't go out. Stay safely at home. Not even during the daytime. Once we catch him, you can go wherever you like." When Jingshu looked at her father, and her heart felt squeezed tight. Who was her father? A police chief who had spent decades catching criminals. He had seen every kind of case. But this one was different. The culprit was still at large, and his own daughter fit exactly the profile of the killer's targets. "Dad, I'm not afraid," she said. "I am afraid," when Zhangping cut her off. His voice rose sharply, then he paused, lowering it almost to a whisper. "I am afraid." Silence filled the office for several heartbeats. When Jingshu stood, walked around the desk, and hugged her father from behind. When Zhangping stiffened. When she was little, she had hugged his legs, but she had not done this as she grew older. When Zhangping lifted his hand and laid it over his daughter's hands resting on his shoulders. "Daughter," he patted her hands. "I'm all right. I've just pulled 2 all-nighters and I'm worn out. Rest assured, I will catch this man. I believe in you." When Jingshu let go and stood straight. "You're my father. You've caught more bad men than I have eaten grains of salt." When Zhangping laughed despite himself. "The municipal bureau has given us a strict deadline to solve the case. Several counties are cooperating. Roadblocks, investigations, stake-outs. We are using every method we have. But this man is extremely slippery. He changes locations with every crime, leaves no survivors, and almost no clues at the crime scenes." He paused, looked straight at Wen Jingshu, and spoke earnestly and gravely. "Jingshu, stay away from black market areas for the time being." Wen Jingshu's heart missed a beat. "Dad, don't pretend you know nothing about it," when Zhangping interrupted her. "Your pork, rib sausages, corn oil, towels. Word has spread all over the black market. People talk about a young boy selling high-quality goods at fair prices. I sent men to investigate. They traced it to a boy of 15 or 16. When Jingshu's fingers curled tight against her knees. "I haven't moved against him," when Zhangping said. His eyes held no rebuke, only the heavy, weight worry of a father for his daughter. "I know those goods belong to you. Your mother told me that you have classmates in the provincial city who can get hold of certain items. And the black market isn't entirely without merit." When Jingshu lowered her head, her eyelashes fluttering gently. "Dad, I'm not blaming you." When Zhangping's voice softened. "Helping others is a good thing. But these are special times. That murderer specifically targets wealthy people, and the black market is full of all sorts of characters. If you catch someone's eye..." He did not finish his sentence, yet his meaning was perfectly clear. When Jingshu lifted her gaze and met her father's bloodshot eyes. "Dad, I understand. I won't go near the black market for a while. When Zhangping nodded, his expression relaxing a little. That young friend of yours, what's his name again? Shin Jiheng? He's a decent kid. I had meant keep an eye on him for 2 days. He sells things honestly, never cheats anyone, and stays out of trouble. He also takes good care of his little sister. But keep things in proper bounds. Don't let him take too many risks, and don't get yourself dragged into danger either. I know, Dad. When Zhangping stood up and patted her on the shoulder. All right, you head back. Tell your mother I might not make it home these next couple of days, so she shouldn't worry. Dad, what are you going to eat for lunch? When Zhangping froze for a moment, he glanced at the enamel mug and ashtray on his desk and replied vaguely, there's food in the staff canteen. How good can canteen food be? When Jingshu stood up and pushed the packet of sheep trotters toward him. Have one to tide you over. I'll go get you a meal from the canteen. No need, yes, I will. When Jingshu was already out the door. The County Police Bureau's canteen was a single-story building at the back of the compound. Lunch service had just started when she arrived. Several uniformed police officers stood at the window holding enamel bowls, chatting casually. She walked over and greeted them openly. She had come here often since childhood, so everyone knew her. Bureau Chief Wen's daughter? The woman serving food paused with her spoon suspended in mid-air. Here to see your father? I'd like a meal for my dad. The woman took her enamel bowl and scooped a huge helping of cabbage stewed with vermicelli, adding another generous ladleful. A police officer standing nearby muttered under his breath, why don't I ever get that much? The server shot him a sharp look, and he fell silent at once. When Jingshu carried back 2 bowls of food to the office, father and daughter ate across the desk from one another. The cabbage, vermicelli stew had hardly any oil, but paired with salted duck eggs and sheep trotters, it tasted satisfying enough. This egg is good, he mumbled with his mouth full. Better than the ones your mother pickles. Dare you say that to her face? Not a chance. When Jingshu nearly laughed vermicelli out of her nose. After finishing their meal, as he watched his daughter gathering the bowls, he suddenly spoke. Jingshu, you've grown up. The bowl in Wen Jingshu's hand stilled. When you were little, you were terribly timid. You'd crawl into my bed whenever there was thunder. Now you're bringing meals to the police station, and you're practically holding up half the household for your mother. When Jingshu stacked the bowls and turned to face him. Dad, I wasn't timid. I just thought your arms were warm. All right, enough of your teasing. Go on home and watch your step on the way. Dad, please be careful with that murderer. When Zhangping nodded, he stood, straightened the collar of his uniform, and held himself tall and steady like a solid wall. Don't worry. I've spent my whole career catching bad guys. No one's ever gotten the drop on me. She walked out of the office and glanced back at the stairwell. When Zhangping stood in the doorway and waved. She waved back, then turned and descended the stairs. As she rode her bicycle out through the police station gate, she glanced up at the second-floor window. The curtain stirred. She knew her father was watching her from behind it. She did not look back. She pushed down on the pedal, and the bicycle rolled smoothly away. Leaving the police station behind, when Jingshu cycled along the main street toward the family housing compound. She kept a steady pace, yet her eyes constantly scanned ahead, behind, to her left and to her right. Never in this life, nor in her previous one, had she ever been so alert. Qingping County normally enjoyed good public order. Her father had served as police bureau chief for many years, and even petty theft had been rare in town. Things were different now. She glanced down at her yellow cardigan and cursed silently. She should have worn the gray one today. As she turned into the narrow alley leading to the housing compound, her heart skipped a beat. She had traveled this road hundreds of times. She could ride it with her eyes closed. Today felt wrong. The walls on either side of the alley seemed higher than usual. Ivy rustled in the wind along the tops. The slanting sunset stretched her shadow long across the blue, brick pavement, like a strange, lanky figure following close behind her. Her grip tightened on the handlebars. Her palms grew damp. Someone was behind her. A man on a bicycle, roughly 20 meters back. He wore a gray unbuttoned tunic. His cap sat low over his face, hiding his features. He maintained exactly the same speed as her, keeping his distance. Sweat beaded on Wen Jingshu's palms. She turned a corner. He turned too. She pedaled faster. He accelerated as well. Her heart hammered so hard it felt ready to leap out of her throat. She did not turn around. Her father had taught her, when a bad man follows you, do not look back. If you show you have noticed him, he may strike early. If you keep your eyes forward, he will hold off for a better opportunity, and that buys you time. Then she heard the whir of bicycle chains drawing nearer. She kept her right hand firm on the handlebar and slipped her left hand into her canvas bag. Her fingers closed around an object the size of a lipstick. A self-defense device. It delivered a weak, non-lethal electric shock, but it hurt terribly. It looked exactly like an ordinary flashlight. She pulled the flashlight out and clasped it in her palm, her thumb resting over the switch. The metal casing had grown warm from the heat of her hand. The stranger drew alongside her. "Miss," he said. His voice was flat and unremarkable, as though he were simply asking for directions. When Jingshu shot him a quick glance. He was in his 30s, with a long thin face, high cheekbones, and sunken eye sockets. His skin was rough and his lips were cracked. His eyes sent a chill crawling over her scalp. "Miss, how do I get to Liliagu?" he asked. A scar twitched as the corner of his mouth tugged upward. "Head straight north, cross the bridge, then turn west." She was surprised her voice did not shake. "I see." He nodded, yet he neither turned off nor slowed down. He stayed right beside her. When Jingshu's thumb brushed lightly over the flashlight switch, suddenly the man sped up. Not forward, toward her. He swerved his bicycle into hers. When Jingshu's handlebars jolted violently, she lost her balance and tumbled to the ground. "What are you doing?" she cried, genuine alarm ringing in her voice. The man jumped off his bicycle and tossed it against the wall. He stood over her, blocking her path. "Hand over your bag," he said, one short sentence. When Jingshu stared at him, her fingers tightening around the flashlight-shaped device. "I don't have any money." A cold dread washed over her. "You came out of the police station, riding a Phoenix bicycle, wearing leather shoes, carrying a bag. You expect me to believe you have no money?" Her heart sank. He had marked her right outside the police station gate. "Don't come any closer," she warned. He laughed, baring yellowed teeth with half a missing front tooth. "And what will you do if I do?" His hand came out of his trouser pocket. He held a boning knife. When Jingshu's pupils constricted, her father's words echoed sharply in her mind. "He leaves no witnesses alive." This was the murderer. Fear solved nothing. Crying solved nothing. Begging would achieve even less. Her only chance was the flashlight in her hand. "I told you once more, stay back." The man tilted his head, apparently amused by her reaction. Most people would collapse in terror, scream for help, or turn and run. She stood her ground and spoke to him instead. "You're an interesting girl." He took another step forward. When Jingshu's thumb flipped open the safety cover, a faint click barely broke the silence. "This is your last warning," she said, her gaze fixed unblinkingly on him. "Don't come near me." He snorted in derision and raised the knife. When Jingshu pressed the switch, zzz, a crackling blue, white arc of electricity leaped from the tip of the device. The boning knife made contact with the arc first. Metal conducted the current. Electricity raced up the blade, into his hand, his arm, and half of his body. His laugh cut off abruptly. He jolted as though seized by an invisible force. The shock was not powerful enough to knock him unconscious outright. It inflicted searing pain, but it was non-lethal. He staggered and propped himself against the wall, swaying like a drunk man. His right arm hung limp, his fingers twitching and curling like chicken claws. Shock gave way to raw rage across his face. "You damn!" Gritting his teeth, he regained his footing. He snatched the knife up off the ground with his left hand. When Jingshu's heart sank, he was still standing. He advanced toward her, knife pointed forward, driven by furious ferocity. When Jingshu backed away, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Her back hit the wall. There was nowhere left to run. The man was only 2 paces away. His right hand still twitched, and the muscles on half his face spasmed. "You little girl," he panted, his voice hoarse and ragged. "You've got one of those gadgets, huh? Go on, shock me again. How many times can that thing fire?" When Jingshu pressed the switch a second time, zzz, another arc of electricity. This time she aimed for his left hand, the one gripping the knife. He dodged, not fully out of range, but just enough to avoid a direct hit. The arc grazed his wrist, leaving a red burn mark across the back of his hand, yet he did not drop the blade. "That's all you've got," he snarled through his teeth. Then he lunged. When Jingshu had no time for a third discharge, she threw herself sideways. Her shoulder slammed hard against the wall. Bone throbbed with sharp pain. The knife sliced past her left arm. A cold sensation was instantly followed by warmth. Her butter, yellow cardigan sleeve ripped open, exposing pale skin and a bright, red gash underneath. Pain flooded in. Tears sprang instantly to her eyes, yet she bit her lips hard and held them back. The sight of blood made the man grin. In the dim alley, his smile looked savage, like a wild dog that had finally caught its prey. "Does that hurt?" he asked, perverse satisfaction in his tone. "Don't worry. It won't hurt for much longer." He lunged again. When Jingshu did not dodge this time, gripping the device tight with her thumb jammed on the switch, she charged straight toward him. She pressed the live tip firmly against his neck. Zzz, she kept it held there for roughly 3 full seconds. His body convulsed violently like a frog struck by electricity. The knife clattered to the ground. His eyes rolled back. A gurgling sound escaped his open mouth. Then he toppled backward heavily. Thud. He lay motionless on the brick pavement. Silence settled over the alley. When Jingshu leaned against the wall, gasping for breath, blood kept seeping from the cut on her left arm, soaking through a large section of her sleeve, turning the butter, yellow fabric rust, red. She bit her lip, transferred the flashlight-shaped device to her injured left hand, and crouched down. Her right hand felt across the ground until it closed around a wooden stick. It was a broken length of clothes, drying bamboo, about as long as an adult's arm and roughly as thick as a child's wrist. She stood, stick in hand, and stepped over to the man. His chest rose and fell faintly. He was alive, merely knocked unconscious. When Jingshu did not hesitate, she raised the stick and brought it down hard against the back of his head, the spot her father had told her would bring quick unconsciousness. Crack. His body jerked once, then went completely limp. She tossed the stick aside. Only a small smudge of blood marked its surface. She stood in the alley, gasping, staring at the man on the ground, the knife by the wall, and the bleeding wound on her own arm. Then she bent to pick up the knife, grasping its hilt firmly in her right hand. She went to retrieve her bicycle. The handlebars were twisted, the chain had fallen off, and the rear wheel spun slowly. She refitted the chain and straightened the handlebars. She swung herself onto the seat. Her left arm throbbed too badly to hold the handlebar, so she steered mostly with her right hand, resting her left lightly on top. As she rode out of the alley, she glanced back. The man still lay there, perfectly still. She pedaled as fast as she could. Wind roared in her ears. Tears pooled in her eyes, yet none spilled over. The wind dried them the instant they threatened to fall. Normally, the ride from the alley back to the police station took 15 minutes. She covered it in less than half that time. The bright white lamp over the police station gate was lit. Oldley, the gatekeeper, stood sipping tea from an enamel mug. He stared in shock as a girl came tearing into the compound on a bicycle. Then he saw the blood. Good heavens! Oldley nearly dropped his mug. "Child, what happened to you?" When Jingshu paid him no mind, she slammed her bicycle against the wall with a loud clang and stumbled toward the stairs. Her feet thundered on the steps. The door at the far end of the second-floor hallway stood ajar, light spilling out through the gap. She shoved it open. When Zhongping sat behind his desk holding a folder, 2 other police officers sat across from him. They had evidently been in a meeting. All 3 looked up at the crash of the door. When Zhongping saw his daughter framed in the doorway, blood soaked her left sleeve, her face drained of color, her eyes red, rimmed, her lips trembling, and a boning knife clutched tight in her right hand. The folder slipped from his grasp and slammed onto the desk. Jingshu. When Jingshu opened her mouth to speak, then the tears burst free. She broke into long, suppressed, heart-broken sobs, shaking from head to toe, gasping for air like a hurt little child. "Dad," she could barely get the words out between cries. Someone tried to rob me. He had a knife. I shocked him. Down in the alley, he fell. I was afraid he'd wake up, so I hit him over the head with a stick. Dad," she could not go on. When Zhongping had already rounded the desk and crossed to her side in 2 long strides. One hand steadied her shoulder. With the other, he carefully pried the knife out of her right hand and set it on the desk. "Which alley?" he asked. His voice was eerily calm, yet when Jingshu noticed his hands were shaking. "The narrow one. The one leading to our housing compound." When Zhongping glanced at the 2 officers, who had already stood and pulled on their caps. "Lu, assemble a team. Son, get the vehicle ready." He turned back to Jingshu. "Sit down for a moment, dear." He guided her into a chair, then knelt down to look up at her, his tone soft and gentle. just as it had been when she was small and afraid of thunderstorms. "Let me see your injury." When Jingshu held out her left arm, blood had glued the sleeve fabric to the wound. Not daring to tear it free, Wen Jumping fetched a pair of scissors from his desk drawer and cut the sleeve open. The ruined sleeve of her butter, yellow cardigan fell away, exposing the gash. It had stopped bleeding, yet the edges were raw, revealing fresh pink tissue underneath. He stood, took his uniform jacket from the coat rack, and draped it over Wen Jingshu's shoulders, wrapping her injured arm carefully. "We're going to the hospital." "Dad, what about the man?" "Lu's men are already on their way there." Wen Jumping supported her by the shoulder as they walked downstairs. Her legs buckled halfway down the staircase. He caught her, lifted her onto his back, and carried her quickly down the steps. Out in the yard, the green three-wheeled motorcycle sputtered to life, its engine rumbling. Sun sat in the driver's seat. When he saw Wen Jumping carrying his daughter out, he quickly cleared space in the cargo compartment. Wen Jumping set Wen Jingshu down inside, then climbed in beside her. He gripped the edge of the compartment with one hand and held her hand with the other. "Old Sun, County Hospital, hurry." The three-wheeled motorcycle roared and shot out of the gates of the Public Security Bureau. Her father's uniform jacket was wrapped around her, oversized and warm. Suddenly memories of early childhood came flooding back. Once, she had a high fever. Her father had carried her on his back, rushing toward the hospital in the middle of the night. Back then she was small, lying against his broad back, which felt like a solid wall that could block every gust of wind. Now she was lying against that same wall again. "Dad." That man, I stunned him with the electric flashlight and hit him once with a stick. He shouldn't get away." Wen Jumping fell silent for a moment, then tightened his grip on her hand. "He won't get away," he said. "He cannot escape." As soon as the three-wheeled motorcycle pulled to a stop, Wen Jumping lifted his daughter out of the cart, half supporting, half carrying her toward the emergency room. "Doctor." "Nurse." A duty nurse poked her head out from the window. Seeing Director when holding a girl whose arm was covered in blood, she was shocked and hurried over. "Director 1? What happened, my daughter?" "She got cut by a blade. She needs stitches." The nurse helped Wen Jingshu into the treatment room and seated her on a chair. She carefully peeled open the uniform jacket. When the wound came into view, the nurse gasped. How did this happen?" "A knife cut," Wen Jingshu replied. The nurse glanced at her, then toward Wen Jumping standing in the doorway. Wisely, she asked no further questions and turned to fetch a debridement kit. When hydrogen peroxide was poured onto the injury, Wen Jingshu winced and her fingers clamped down on the edge of the chair. "Bear with me, almost done." The nurse worked swiftly while speaking. "The wound isn't deep, but it's long. You'll need several stitches. Don't be afraid." Wen Jingshu nodded. She could feel the thread piercing through flesh as the needle went in. She bit her lip without making a sound, staring at the tiled wall and counting each tile one by one. When she reached the 7th tile, rapid footsteps echoed outside. The door to the treatment room was flung open. Wen Yanhe stood in the doorway. He was still wearing surgical scrubs. His operating cap was still on, and his mask dangled from one ear. Sweat beaded his forehead. He had clearly run straight over from the operating theater. His gaze locked onto the laceration on Wen Jingshu's left arm that was being stitched closed. "Jingshu. Second brother." Wen Jingshu forced a smile that looked more like a grimace. "It's fine, just a few stitches. It doesn't hurt much." Wen Yanhe said nothing. He stepped inside, knelt beside her and took her right hand in his own. His hands were much larger than hers, dry and warm, carrying the sharp scent of operating room disinfectant. "Who did this?" "I don't know him. A man. He tried to rob me and pulled a knife. I stunned him with an electric-type flashlight, then hit him with a stick. And then I rode my bike to find Dad." Wen Yanhe was quiet for 2 seconds. "Where is that flashlight?" "Here." Wen Jingshu pulled it out of her jacket pocket and handed it over. Wen Yanhe turned it over in his hands. It had a silver aluminum casing, printed with the word flashlight and a glass lens at the top. He flicked the switch. Nothing happened. It was probably drained. "This thing can deliver an electric shock?" "Yes. Teacher Chen specially got it for me, said it was some kind of high-voltage flashlight for self-defense." Wen Yanhe handed the flashlight back to her. He said nothing, only squeezed her hand a little tighter. "All stitched up." The nurse snipped the thread end, laid gauze over the wound and secured it with adhesive tape. "Keep this area dry after you go home." Change the dressing every 3 days. Remove the stitches in 7 days. Avoid spicy food and alcohol for the next few days. Get plenty of rest. Thank you, Wen Jingshu said. After that, when Yenha examined her knee, bluish, purple bruising spread all around her kneecap. A hard swelling bulged at the center, tinged yellow, green around the edges. When Yenha's brows drew together, he gently pressed around the bone, the inner side, outer side, top and bottom of the patella. After each press, he watched her face for her reaction. Does it hurt here? It's bearable. What about here? A little. This spot? Hiss, that hurts. When Yenha withdrew his fingers, he stood upright and looked at Wen Jingshu. No bone damage, just soft, tissue bruising. Wen Jingshu nodded obediently. Right now whatever her second brother said felt absolutely correct. When Yenha pulled her trouser leg down, letting fabric fall gently over the injured knee, he took off his glasses and wiped the lenses with the hem of his white coat. When Jingshu noticed his hands trembling, the tremor was faint, easy to miss if you were not paying close attention. Second brother, she called. When Yenha did not lift his eyes, continuing to clean his lenses. Second brother, she called again, her voice soft, almost coquettish. When Yenha put his glasses back on and met her gaze, the corners of his eyes were reddened. When Jingshu, he addressed her by her full name. If you ever go wandering into places like that alone again, he did not finish his sentence. When Jingshu reached out and tugged at the sleeve of his coat. Second brother, I know you're worried, she mumbled. I didn't mean for this to happen. I took a detour. I thought that alley would be safe. Next time I will definitely. There will be no next time. When Yenha cut her off. From now on, when you go out, either Dad accompanies you or I do. If neither of us is free, you stay home. When Jingshu parted her lips, ready to protest that she was not a small child. But seeing the look on her second brother's face, she wisely held her tongue. I understand, she nodded meekly. When Yenha looked at her pitiful, well-behaved appearance, his lips moved, yet no words came out. He sat down beside her. After several long seconds of silence, he lifted an arm and gently draped it over her shoulders. When Jingshu rested her head on his shoulder, the two siblings sat there together. Second brother, when Jingshu said quietly, your shoulder is so bony, it hurts my cheek. If it bothers you, don't lean on me. I'm not moving away though. When Jingshu nestled her head against him, searching for a more comfortable angle. Eat more meat. Your shoulder bones are too sharp. When Yenha did not reply, but his arm around her shoulders tightened slightly. A short while later, when Zhangping walked into the room, they caught the attacker. Officers from the Municipal Bureau have taken him into custody. Lao Lu called. He was still lying there unconscious with a large bump on the back of his head. The knife has been sent for forensic testing. You did very well. When Jingshu nodded. Dad, is that man? It is him. When Zhangping interrupted, his tone heavy with lingering fear. The suspect circulated by the Municipal Bureau. You are the only person who survived his attack. Silence fell across the treatment room. When Jingshu glanced down at the gauze wrapped around her left arm. Dad, she lifted her head and forced another smile, hoping to ease her father's worry. Does that count as me doing something meritorious? It does. You will be commended for this. When Yenha stood in the doorway, watching his younger sister sitting in the chair, bandaged on one arm, still joking lightly with their father. A sharp twisting pain gnawed at his chest. He walked over, picked up her blood-stained butter, yellow cardigan draped over the back of the chair, folded it and tucked it under his arm. Let's go home. When Jingshu slid off the chair, the instant her feet touched the floor, pain shot through her knee and she drew in a sharp breath. When Yenha supported her immediately, letting her weight rest on his shoulder. Take it slow. When Zhangping stepped to her other side and also offered support. As they passed a mirror by the emergency room entrance, she caught sight of herself. Her hair was a tangled mess. Streaks of dried tears marked her face. Her eyes were puffy and red, her lips a little swollen. Yet her eyes were bright. She gave her reflection a small smile. I'm still alive. That is enough. When they reached the hospital gate, when Jingshu suddenly remembered something. My bicycle, we will bring it back for you tomorrow, when Zhangping said. Relief washed over her. Second brother, I thought you weren't on night shift today. I swapped shifts. Outside the hospital gate, the night wind blew cool, carrying the earthy scent of grass and damp soil. When Jingshu drew a deep breath of crisp air, clearing her head. She glanced at Wen Zhangping on her left and Wen Yenha on her right. A laugh bubbled out of her. When Yenha looked down at her. What are you laughing at? Nothing. She pulled the uniform jacket tighter around herself and tucked in the cuffs. I just feel like I'm being fussed over by everyone around me. When Zhongping could not hold back and chuckled aloud. When Yenha's mouth twitched. He tried to keep a stern expression but failed and laughed too. Fussed over by everyone? He flicked her forehead lightly. More like covered in mud. Look how filthy you are. Anyone would think you just climbed out of a sweet potato field. So what? Sweet potatoes are food, there's honor in that, Wen Jingxu retorted unrepentantly. When they arrived home, the main hall lamp was still lit. Lin Qingjun stood in the doorway. She watched Wen Jingxu being helped in by the two men. Her daughter's hair was loose, one arm swathed in bandages, trouser leg torn open, and a faint streak of dried blood marked her cheek. Mom, Wen Jingxu called. Lin Qingjun said nothing. She stepped forward and stood in front of Wen Jingxu. Her hand hovered near the edge of the bandage, then paused. I will heat up some soup. Wen Jingxu saw her mother brush at her eyes as she turned away. A sting of sorrow pricked her nose. Wen Zhongping guided her into the main hall and seated her beside the square table. As soon as her hips touched the bench, she winced. She had forgotten she could not bend her injured knee. When Yenha fetched a small low stool from behind and set it under her feet. Keep your leg straight, don't bend it. When Jingxu obeyed and rested her leg on the stool. Moments later, Lin Qingjun came out of the kitchen carrying a bowl of steaming chicken soup. The broth was golden, dotted with goji berries and red dates. Chunks of chicken settled at the bottom. She set the bowl down in front of Wen Jingxu. Drink the soup first. I will cook you a bowl of noodles shortly. Wen Jingxu picked up the bowl and took a sip. It burned her tongue, yet warmth spread all the way down her throat into her stomach, reviving her whole body. She finished the entire bowl, gnawing every piece of chicken clean down to the bones. Lin Qingjun returned with a bowl of noodles topped with a poached egg. Wen Jingxu ate every last bit, drinking down all the broth. When Yenha sat beside her with his own bowl of noodles untouched, simply watching her eat. Only once she had set her empty bowl down did he pick up his chopsticks and start his meal. When Zhongping carried out an enamel basin filled with cold water from the kitchen. He fetched a clean towel from the cabinet, soaked and wrung it out, then squatted in front of Wen Jingxu. Straighten your leg. Wen Jingxu stretched it out. When Zhongping laid the cold damp towel across her swollen knee, pressing down gently with his hand. The cool fabric against her throbbing joint made her shiver. He kept his head bowed. She could not see his expression. Dad, I can do this myself. Stay still. When Zhongping's voice was muffled. When Jingxu stopped resisting. After dinner, Wen Yenha collected the bowls and washed them. Lin Qingjun helped Wen Jingxu upstairs, made her bed, fluffed the pillows and propped them behind her back. Mom. I really wasn't scared today. When Jingxu leaned against the headboard, her left arm resting atop the quilt as she looked at her mother. It was only when I saw Dad that I started crying for no reason. Truly, I wasn't afraid. When that man lunged at me, I was even thinking, Dad always said the back of the head is the best spot to strike in self-defense. Lin Qingjun raised a hand and covered her daughter's mouth. Don't talk about it. Her voice was hoarse. Rest. Sleep. She stood, walked to the door and turned off the light. In the dark, when Jingxu heard her mother pause outside the room before the door clicked shut. She lay under the covers, staring at the ceiling. A dull throbbing ached in her left arm, like tiny hammers tapping against bone, pain she could bear. She closed her eyes. The events of those terrible minutes replayed in her mind. The narrow alley, the blade, the electric arc from the flashlight, the heavy thud when the stick connected. Then her eyes fluttered open, and she smiled silently in the darkness. Only a few days since she had arrived in this world, and she had already lived through such an ordeal. She rolled over and curled tightly under the quilt, carefully keeping her wounded left arm outside so she would not press on the injury. Downstairs. Lin Qingjuan's voice drifted upward. Did they catch him? They did. He confessed everything. Thank goodness. A stretch of silence followed. Then Lin Qingjun spoke again, her voice so low it was barely audible. Zhongping, today I know, when Zhongping replied. I know. Heavy drowsiness washed over Wen Jingxu. The surge of adrenaline had faded, draining all her energy away. Her eyelids grew too heavy to hold open. When Jingxu woke because of pain. She had slept long and deep. She shifted her left arm. Hiss, sharp agony jolted her wide awake. She shot upright in bed. No, the flash sale event. The 8 o'clock session. She quickly summoned her translucent system panel. The system log popped up ruthlessly. The 20:0021:00 flash sale window of yesterday has closed. When Jingshu stared at those words, the corners of her mouth twitching. For the first time since arriving in this world, she had missed a flash sale. Across her past and present lives, she had never once missed an online promotion. Her speed-snatching coupons on Double 11 had outpaced most people grabbing red envelopes. And now, mere days after crossing over, her perfect record was broken. Oh well. Last night she had been chased through an alley by an attacker wielding a knife. She had suffered a deep cut on her arm, and her knee was swollen badly. If she could still remember an online flash sale in the middle of that chaos, she would be superhuman. Missing it is fine. The important thing is I survived. She checked the morning flash sale offerings. Ding Limited Time Flash Sale System. Current window 08:0009:00. Time remaining 17 minutes 23 seconds. Only one item was listed on the glowing panel. Chinese style apricot midi A-line skirt times 10 pieces. System price 50 yuan each, actual deduction 0.5 yuan each. Item description: high count cotton, blend fabric, drapes well and resists wrinkling. Hidden waist, button design, suitable for daily wear and festive occasions. One size fits, most with adjustable waist. Without hesitation, she tapped buy all. A prompt popped up, payment successful. Total deducted, 5 yuan. Item stored in system warehouse and may be retrieved at any time. Footsteps sounded from downstairs. They were soft, yet her senses had sharpened drastically after last night's ordeal. The bedroom door creaked open a crack. Awake. Lin Qingyuan's voice came through the gap. Yes. When Jingshu opened her eyes and watched her mother step in carrying an enamel tray. On the tray sat a bowl of millet congee, a small plate of shredded pickled vegetables, a peeled boiled egg, and a steaming reddish brown drink with a sweet aroma. Mom, didn't you go to work today? When Jingshu took the tray and set it on her nightstand. I took leave. Lin Qingjun sat on the edge of the bed and pushed the enamel cup toward her. Drink this red, date tonic water first, it replenishes blood. Mom, skipping work will cause trouble for you. Just focus on recovering yourself. Lin Qingjun inspected the bandage on her left arm, her brows faintly furrowed. No fresh blood seepage, that's good. Stay put today and rest your arm. I understand. When Jingshu nodded obediently and began eating her congee. She finished everything, even sopping up the leftover pickled vegetable sauce with steamed bun. Lin Qingjun watched her finish, picked up the tray and walked toward the door, then turned back. Jingshu. Yes? Dad sat out in the courtyard for a very long time after coming home last night. When Jingshu froze. He smoked. I didn't stop him. He only smokes when something weighs on his mind. Normally I forbid it and he obeys. Last night I let him be. When Jingshu lowered her gaze, tracing patterns across the quilt with her fingers. Mom, I will be more careful from now on. Lin Qingjun gave her one look, said nothing more, and carried the tray downstairs. Around 9 o'clock voices drifted up from downstairs. She pricked her ears. It was her father speaking with 2 other people, their voices kept low, indistinct. Shortly afterward, footsteps climbed the staircase. 3 people entered her room. When Zhongping walked in front, followed by 2 uniformed police officers. One was a man in his 40s with a square face holding a notebook. The other was younger, around 20, one carrying a briefcase. Jingshu, this are Officer Zhou and Officer Dong from the Municipal Bureau, here to take your statement. When Zhongping pulled a chair beside the bed but remained standing near the window. Officer Zhou sat across from her. The younger officer sat beside him, opened a folder and uncapped his fountain pen. This is just standard procedure, don't be nervous. Officer Zhou spoke gently, as if chatting with a niece of his own family. Tell us everything that happened after you left the Public Security Bureau yesterday. Start from the beginning. When Jingshu nodded, she recounted leaving the building, the route she cycled, which alley she turned into, when she noticed she was being followed. How the man cut her off, what he had said, and what kind of blade he carried. When she described him lunging with the knife, Lin Qingjun sat to one side holding a glass of water whose surface rippled unsteadily. When she told them how she had struck the back of his head once with a bamboo stick to stop him waking up, Officer Zhou's eyebrows lifted. How long was the stick? When Jingshu gestured with her hands. About as long as my arm, as thick as a child's wrist, a broken length of bamboo pole. How many times did you hit him? Once. Where exactly? The back of his head. Your father taught you that? Wen Jingshu gave a small smile. Yes. Dad says striking the back of the head is the most effective way to defend yourself. Officer Zhou sighed with a faint smile. Director Wen, you certainly taught your daughter practical self-defense. Read through this. If everything is correct, sign your name and press your fingerprint. Wen Jingshu read the full statement carefully. It was concise and accurate, neither exaggerating nor omitting key details. She took the fountain pen, signed her name in the bottom right corner, then pressed her index finger into the ink pad and stamped a red fingerprint beside her signature. Old Zhou put the documents away, stood up and looked at Wen Jingshu. Comrade Wen Jingshu, I've worked as a police officer for 20 years and handled countless cases. Your situation, he paused. It's extremely unusual. That man was a repeat offender, cruel in his methods and highly skilled at evading detection. Police across several counties in our city have been hunting him for a long time. We set up roadblocks, staked out locations, carried out thorough investigations, we used every means available, yet we failed to catch him. He looked at Wen Jingshu with undisguised admiration in his eyes. For a young woman, to keep your wits about you under those circumstances and subdue him is something very few people could do. I didn't think much at the time. I just knew I couldn't let him get away. The Municipal Bureau may grant you a merit citation. You will be notified when the time comes. Wen Jingshu blinked in surprise. A merit citation? Yes, for courageous acts in the face of danger. Old Zhou smiled. You're Director Wen's daughter. I probably shouldn't say this, but you've really done your father proud. After Old Zhou and his men left, silence settled over the room. Leaning against the headboard, Wen Jingshu picked up the bowl of red date water and took another sip. Downstairs, she heard her father seeing the guests off, followed by footsteps as Old Zhou's group departed. A little while later, footsteps thundered up the stairs, her father's. When Zhongping pushed open the door and saw her propped up comfortably against the headboard, he sat down on the edge of the bed, picked up the empty bowl of red date water, glanced at it, and nodded in satisfaction. Finished it? Good. Your mother says she'll make you another bowl, this time with goji berries. Dad, Uncle Zhou said the Municipal Bureau might give me a merit citation. When Zhongping nodded. Yes. I spoke to the Municipal Bureau this morning. You were lucky. That man was responsible for 4 deaths, and you are the only person who survived and managed to overpower him. The Municipal Bureau wants to hold you up as a model citizen. You may have to attend an awards ceremony in the city. When Jingshu parted her lips. An award ceremony? In the city? What, are you nervous? It's not fear. It's just, when Jingshu searched for the right words. I was terrified out of my wits. I shone a flashlight in his face in a panic, hit him once with a stick, then ran crying to find you. Can that really count as courageous conduct? When Zhongping looked at her and ruffled her hair gently. Girl, courage doesn't require fancy fighting moves. You were scared, yet you still subdued him and called for help. That is more than enough. Dad, don't you need to go to the bureau today? I'll head over this afternoon. When Zhongping leaned back in his chair. I'm staying home with you this morning. There's something else, he said. What is it? Your grandparents have heard what happened. So have your eldest and second uncles. They're all coming to see you tomorrow. When Jingshu, all of them. Every single one, when Zhongping confirmed. Your grandmother didn't sleep a wink last night once she found out. She phoned the bureau first thing this morning and gave you a good scolding. When Jingshu drew her neck in slightly. What did Grandma scold me for? For being far too reckless. A faint smile tugged at Wen Zhongping's mouth. Said a young girl ought to run when trouble comes, not fight back, and wondered if you'd lost your senses. When Jingshu lowered her head. Then she turned on me too. What did she say to you? Said I hadn't kept you safe enough. There will be a crowd tomorrow. Don't get out of bed. Stay resting. When Grandma sees the bandage on your arm, she's sure to shed tears. Comfort her a little. Got it. Jingshu. If Grandma tries to press money into your hands, take it. Don't refuse her. All right, Dad. Grandma also said she'll bring braised spare ribs she cooked herself. Your eldest uncle will bring canned fruit, your second uncle some peach shortbread. Your eldest cousin powdered milk, your second cousin malted milk extract. Your third cousin is bringing milk candies and your fourth cousin honey. Your cousins' wives are coming as well. When Jingshu opened her mouth to say there was no need for such a fuss, but swallowed the words. She knew there was no stopping them. Once Grandma set her mind on coming, nothing would change it. Not only would she come, she would bring every gift she could gather and summon every family member she could reach. As her mother liked to put it, Grandma was bringing the entire army to visit. The front gate of Wen Jingshu's house hardly stayed quiet for the rest of the morning. The first visitor was Aunt Wang from next door. She carried a live old hen, its feet bound with hemp rope. It flapped its wings and clucked noisily as she set it down in the courtyard, then hurried upstairs to see Wen Jingshu. "Oh, my poor girl." Aunt Wang strode over and plopped down on the bed edge. She took Wen Jingshu's hands and looked her over from head to toe. "Where are you hurt?" "Let me see." "Oh, your arm." "Does it hurt?" "Aunt Wang, it doesn't hurt much anymore. How can you say that? Your mother told me you had stitches." Aunt Wang's eyes turned red and her voice shook. "You always seemed so quiet and gentle, yet you had that much grit. That man was a killer." Aunt Wang gripped her hands so tightly when Jingshu's fingers went numb. "Aunt Wang, I'm really fine. Just a cut on my arm and a bruise on my knee. A few days' rest will fix me up." "Let me tell you, you didn't only save yourself. Think about it. That criminal roamed free for so long and hurt so many people. If you hadn't taken him down, who knows who his next victim would have been. All the women and young girls in this residential compound have been living in fear. Thanks to you, everyone can breathe easy again." Next came Aunt Zheng, who lived in the house up the row. Her husband worked for the county government. Aunt Zheng carried 2 tins of canned fruit. She walked in, looked Wen Jingshu up and down, and let out a long sigh of relief. "Jingshu, you're the hero of our compound. My husband came home last night saying the police had caught the criminal, and that Director Wen's own daughter had helped apprehend him. I couldn't believe it. By this morning, the whole county is talking about it." Third was Aunt Lu from the alley next over, carrying a sack holding at least 20 odd eggs. She took Wen Jingshu's hands. "My old man went to the market this morning, and everyone there is chattering about what happened. Old Zhang, the tofu seller, says his cousin's brother-in-law works as a boiler attendant at the police station. He swears he saw your father helping you off the 3-wheeled motorbike, your arm covered in blood." Wen Jingshu's mouth twitched. How could a boiler attendant possibly see what happened inside the second-floor room? Stories really got distorted as they passed from person to person. The fourth visitor was Wang Guilan. Her eyes reddened the moment she stepped inside. She set a net bag of apples on the table, took Wen Jingshu's hands, and examined them closely. Her fingers trembled when she spotted the bandage. "Child, what if something terrible had happened to you?" "Aunt Wang, I'm all right, truly," Wen Jingshu hurried to reassure her. "When Uncle Zhou told me last night, my legs went weak." Wang Guilan dabbed at the corners of her eyes. "How could you be so bold when facing such a dangerous man?" "Dad taught me," Wen Jingshu smiled. "Aim for the back of the head when you strike." More groups of visitors kept arriving, colleagues, family members from Wen Zhongping's workplace, colleagues of Lin Qingjun from the Agriculture Bureau, medical staff who worked with Wen Yanhe, neighbors, an elderly vegetable selling woman from the lane entrance, the shoe repairman outside the supply and marketing cooperative. Wen Jingshu had no idea she knew so many people. Each visitor would take her hands and repeat how much everyone owed her. Each one marveled at how many more victims there might have been without her actions. Before leaving, every single person told her to rest properly and not get up too soon. All the praise made Wen Jingshu deeply uncomfortable, yet she could not turn anyone away. She sat there wearing a polite smile of gratitude until her cheeks ached. After seeing off the last guest, she leaned back against the headboard and let out a long, quiet breath. This is more tiring than fighting off a criminal. Lin Qijun, who had overheard, smiled faintly. Every guest had brought gifts. By noon, the square table in the main room was piled high like a small mountain. 3 old hens, 2 net bags of apples, a basket of eggs, 2 tins of canned fruit, a sack of brown sugar, a bag of red dates, a cured pork joint, half a rack of spare ribs, a bottle of honey, and 2 boxes of pastries. Staring at the mountain of gifts, Wen Jingshu felt like a child showered with red envelopes during Spring Festival, except this time she had received the contents of an entire new year goods market. Lin Qingjun poked her head out from the kitchen, saw the pile, and remarked that there was nowhere left to put everything. She hung the cured meat from the roof beam, stored the eggs in the kitchen cabinet, put the brown sugar away, and herded all the live hens into the backyard. Wen Jingshu thought peace would finally arrive at noon. Then Lin Qingjun carried her lunch upstairs. 1 bowl of golden, yellow chicken soup dotted with goji berries. 1 bowl of rich, smelling bone broth. A plate of stir-fried spinach, a plate of tofu mixed with spring onions, and a bowl of steamed white rice. Mom, how many dishes is this? 4. 4 dishes just for me? You're injured. You need nourishment. Lin Qingjun handed her the chopsticks. The chicken soup is made from Aunt Wang's hen. The pork bones were bought by Yenhe last night on the black market. When Jingshu nearly choked on her soup. Second brother went to the black market? He said you lost a lot of blood and needed good nourishment. The hospital canteen had no pork bones, and neither did the supply and marketing cooperative, so he headed to the black market. He cycled 40 minutes there after 11 at night and bought them under North Passage Bridge. He didn't get home until nearly 1 o'clock. But second brother has always avoided the black market. That was before Lin Qingjun sat down beside the bed. Last night I asked him if he worried about being seen. He said. She paused and imitated Wen Yenhe's tone. My sister nearly lost her life. Why should I worry about my reputation? When Jingshu buried her face close to the soup bowl, warm steam misting over her cheeks. She took a sip of soup. It had simmered for more than 2 hours, all the chicken flavors steeped into the broth. The thick golden chicken fat had been skimmed off, leaving a mellow, sweet taste without any greasiness. Mom, when my grandparents and the rest of the family come tomorrow, the parcel my classmate sent should arrive at the post office. Ask Dad to collect it so I can share the contents with everyone. All right, I'll tell him right away. Mom, your soup tastes wonderful. Save your flattery. Lin Qingjun stood up. Finish eating and get some sleep. More visitors may come this afternoon. Who else? Your father says county officials heard about what happened. Representatives might drop by to see you this afternoon. When Jingshu, all she had wanted was to rest quietly while recovering from her injuries, yet it felt as though she were receiving official guests. Once she finished eating, when Jingshu lay on the bed, she sorted out gifts for her grandparents, uncles and cousins, towels, apples, face cream, and the dress she had received that morning, placing everything into a parcel. Thankfully, her system could rationalize matters automatically. The items would appear at the post office waiting for Wen Jumping to collect them. After resting for a while, she asked Lin Qingjun to help her go downstairs. Staying in bed all afternoon would have felt stifling. Shortly after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the county representatives arrived as expected. Leading them was Deputy Director Zheng from the county government office. He was in his 40s, wore black, rimmed glasses, and spoke in a slow, measured tone. Behind him was a young man carrying a briefcase, presumably his secretary. Deputy Director Zheng sat on the chair beside Wen Jingshu. On behalf of the county, he expressed his sympathy. He told her her brave deeds had been reported to the municipal authorities, who took the matter very seriously and intended to hold her up as a role model. Then he changed the subject, took a craft paper envelope from his briefcase, and handed it over with both hands. Comrade Wen Jingshu, this is your work assignment notice. Following deliberations by the County Bureau of Commerce and the Supply and Marketing Cooperative, you have been assigned to the procurement section of Qingping County Supply and Marketing Cooperative. You are to report for duty next Monday. When Jingshu took the envelope and opened it, inside was a folded sheet of paper printed with the red header of the Qingping County Supply and Marketing Cooperative. The typed text read, Notice of Assignment, Comrade Wen Jingshu female, 20 years old, graduate of Provincial University Department of Trade and Economics, is hereby assigned to our cooperative's procurement section. Please report to the Personnel Department of the Supply and Marketing Cooperative before 9 o'clock on Monday, April X, 1970, bringing this notice and personal identification documents. At the bottom was the bright, round red official seal of the Qingping County Supply and Marketing Cooperative. When Jingshu read the notice through twice from start to finish. Procurement section. She had actually been assigned to the procurement section. Comrade Wen Jingshu, Director Gao and Director Zhou have briefed me on your situation. Deputy Director Zhang adjusted his glasses and spoke gently. Director Gao also said you should focus on recovering from your injury. There is no urgency to report for work right away. Thank you, Deputy Director Zheng. Deputy Director Zheng exchanged a few more formal pleasantries, telling her to rest well, to approach the personnel department on reporting day, and to turn to the organization for help should she encounter any difficulties. He then stood and took his leave. Lin Qingjun saw Deputy Director Zheng to the door. When Jingshu clutched the notice in her hands and read it over again and again. Procurement section. Next Monday. Lin Qingjun returned to the room, unable to hide her smile. Let me see that notice. When Jingshu handed it over, Lin Qingjun read it carefully, her smile growing broader. She let out a soft laugh. Well, that cut wasn't for nothing. Mom, when Jingshu said, half amused and half helpless. Could you not say things like that? If you hadn't subdued that criminal, the county would never have approved your assignment so quickly. I know Gao Changhe. He is prudent, but he moves slowly. Without your brave act making you known to everyone, he would have kept you waiting another 10 days or more. When Jingshu fell silent and thought it over, it did make sense. Only a few days ago Gao Changhe had told her to wait for news, yet here was the notice delivered straight to her home that very afternoon. Normal administrative procedures never moved this fast. She glanced down at the bandage wrapped around her left arm. That injury had been worth enduring. Lin Qingjun laid the notice on the square table and weighed down one corner with an enamel mug to stop it blowing away. Next Monday, she said. Yes, when Jingshu nodded. What about your leg? I can walk, when Jingshu patted her right leg propped on a small stool. It's just soft tissue bruising, according to second brother. The pain has faded a lot already. I'll definitely be all right by Monday. I'll just take slow steps and avoid running or jumping. Very well. I will walk you there on Monday. When Jingshu laughed. Mom, the supply and marketing cooperative is right on Main Street, only a 10-minute bike ride from home. There is no need to accompany me. I insist on going with you. Lin Qingjun's tone brooked no argument. When Jingshu wisely held her tongue. For the rest of the afternoon, when Jingshu stayed in the main room, she spread her textbook Trade Economics open on the table with a notebook beside it. Keeping her injured left arm resting on the table, she turned pages and jotted notes with her right hand. She held one side of each page down with her right hand and steadied the other side with her chin. Her posture was awkward, yet she managed to read more than 20 pages. Lin Qingjun came out of the kitchen, glanced at her, said nothing and went back inside. A short time later the sweet aroma of simmering red dates drifted out. Lin Qingjun had brewed another pot of red date water and poured some into an enamel mug beside Wen Jingshu. Mom, I've already drunk 5 cups today. Drink one more. When Jingshu obediently picked up the mug and drank. Towards evening, when Yenhe came home, he pushed open the door to find Wen Jingshu bent over the table writing with her right hand, her left arm resting motionless on the table as she sat tilted sideways. Can't you rest for just one day? When Yenhe set down his bag, walked over and took her notebook away. Your arm is hurt and you're still writing. My right hand is perfectly fine. When Jingshu reached out to grab her notebook back. When Yenhe held it high out of her reach. Second brother. When Jingshu nodded toward the notice weighed down beneath the enamel mug on the table. When Yenhe walked over, picked it up and read it. He set it back under the mug and turned to face her. Procurement section. Yes. Next Monday. Yes. How's your leg? He knelt down and gently pressed her knee through the blanket. It's fine. I'll take you there on Monday. Mom says she's going too. Then we'll both go. Second brother, having both you and Mom escort me to report for work at the supply and marketing cooperative is a little over the top. It's not like I'm traveling to the provincial capital. It's just a 10-minute bike ride away. Don't argue. When Yenhe stood up and tapped her forehead lightly with his finger. We leave at 8:30 sharp on Monday morning. Shortly afterwards, when Zhongbing returned home, he carried Wen Jingshu's large parcel and held a food box in his other hand. Dad. Procurement section. I know. Quick, give me a hand. There's so much stuff. This is braised pork and potatoes from the canteen at my work unit. A large bowl of glossy red braised pork and potatoes. The meat was tender and the potatoes had soaked up all the rich meat sauce. The wonderful aroma filled the whole house the moment the lid was opened. The case has finally been solved. The canteen staff cooked a special feast for everyone to celebrate. They insisted I bring a portion home for our hero, he said. After dinner, Lin Qingjun helped Wen Jingshu wash up for the night. When Yenhe carried her back to her bedroom on his back, it appeared. A glowing light blue screen unfolded before her eyes. Current available goods remaining time, 59 minutes 58 seconds. Light, texture sunscreen cream 50g per tube times 10 units system price, 80 yuan per tube actual deduction, 0.8 yuan. Product description, SPF 50 plus PA++++, physical, chemical hybrid formula. Light, weight, non-sticky, fast-forming film, no whitening effect. Water, resistant and sweat, resistant. Removable with ordinary facial cleanser. Shelf life, 36 months. Note, upon retrieval, appearance will automatically adapt to the era. Packaging will simply read skincare cream. All descriptions of sun protection index values will be removed. When Jingshu stared at the floating screen, her first thought was, do people in this era even understand sun protection? The answer was no. Young women of the time shielded themselves from summer sunshine with parasols, straw sun, hats, or simply bore the sun directly. The skincare creams sold in supply and marketing cooperatives were Clam, Oil Balm, and Vanishing Cream. They moisturized skin well enough, but offered zero sun protection. She glanced at the back of her own hand. She had naturally fair skin, bright and smooth like fine white porcelain. If she got badly sun-tanned, there would be nothing she could do about it. Besides, she was soon starting her new post in the procurement section. The job required frequent business trips out to rural villages, and plenty of time spent outdoors under direct sunlight. Without sun protection, she would turn dark brown in less than a month. She wanted all 10 tubes. A prompt flashed across the screen. Payment complete. Total deducted. 8 yuan. Goods stored in system warehouse, available for retrieval at any time. When Jingshu woke up feeling unwell, a dull, heavy ache spread across her lower abdomen, causing her to curl up instinctively beneath the quilt. She opened her eyes abruptly. For a few groggy seconds, she thought the pain came from her wounds, before she realized it was something else entirely. Carefully, she lifted a corner of her quilt to check, then pulled the covers back over herself and wrapped up warmly. Her period had come, and it just had to hit at this critical juncture. Her arm was stitched up and she could not exert any strength. Her knee was swollen like a risen steamed bun. And now, yet another place on her body was bleeding. When Jingshu lay tucked under the quilt, staring at the ceiling, the corners of her mouth twitching repeatedly. Was the universe stacking debuffs on her? She took a deep breath and summoned her system. It was exactly 8 in the morning. The flash sale refreshed right on schedule. The instant the light screen popped up, when Jingshu's eyes lit up. Goods for current time slot time remaining. 59 minutes 58 seconds, free range fresh eggs 3 gene per crate, approximate 45 eggs times 1000 units system listed price, 10 yuan per crate actual deduction, 0.1 yuan. Product description, farm, raised free range native eggs. Rich golden yolks, thick translucent egg whites. Each egg individually wrapped in rice husk padding for shock, proof and shatter, proof protection. Shelf life, 30 days. How much did eggs cost at the supply and marketing cooperative? 50 cents a gene, and you still needed ration tickets. On the black market? 80 cents to 1 yuan a gene, and supplies often ran out. Hardly hesitating at all, when Jingshu tapped buy all. A prompt flashed on the light screen. Payment successful. Total deducted, 100 yuan. Goods stored in system warehouse, withdrawable at any time. She had no intention of selling this batch of eggs. 3,000 gene of eggs. How much could she earn on the black market? At 80 cents a gene, that would be 2,400 yuan. Subtracting her 100 yuan cost, she would net 2,300. But she was not going for that profit. She was keeping these eggs for herself. Tomorrow she would report for duty in the procurement section. What did the procurement section do? Source supplies for the supply and marketing cooperative. What was the cooperative most short of? Eggs. What were ordinary common people most short of? Eggs. The egg counter at the Qingping County Supply and Marketing Cooperative sat empty half the month. It was not that the cooperative did not want to sell eggs. They simply could not get hold of any. Elderly rural women raised a few chickens. They would not eat the eggs themselves, saving them up to trade for salt and matches. Very few ever made their way to the cooperative. If she could find a large batch of good quality, low-priced eggs, everyone would get to see what she was capable of. She closed the light screen and snuggled contentedly deeper under her quilt. The moment she relaxed, a dull ache flared in her lower abdomen. When Jingshu's expression fell instantly. Pain or no pain, life had to go on. She pulled sanitary pads she had bought earlier out of the system warehouse, tore open the packaging, and weighed one in her hand. Cotton, surface, soft as cloud, thin enough to let light through. Women in this era still used cloth menstrual rags. Even decent toilet paper was hit, or miss at the supply and marketing cooperative. She stowed the pads away, silently giving the system mental praise. With these, at least she would not have to suffer terribly these few days. Satisfied, she closed the light screen, flipped back her quilt, and prepared to get out of bed. She hissed. She had forgotten her left arm was wrapped in gauze. Today was Sunday. The whole extended family was coming. She had been supposed to visit her grandparents today. Last time she had gone to their old street house, she had Pinky promised Grandma, "Next Sunday, I will definitely come." But she had not made it. Not only had she failed to visit, her grandparents had traveled all the way over from the old neighborhood to see her. She fetched clean loungewear, light blue cotton pajamas trimmed with tiny white lace around the collar, fresh looking. Changing clothes was quite a feat. Her left arm could not move. Using only her right hand to work sleeves and fasten buttons, she twisted and wriggled like a fish stranded on the shore. When she finally finished dressing, a thin layer of sweat glistened on her forehead. Leaning against the headboard to catch her breath, she felt she had pulled off her biggest challenge of the day. The door creaked open softly. Lin Qingjun walked in carrying breakfast. When Jingshu was sitting on the edge of the bed combing her hair with her right hand. Since her left arm was useless, she was trying to braid her hair one-handed. The braid came out lopsided, chewed looking. Lin Qingjun stepped over and took the comb from her hand. "Hold still." In a few quick strokes, she wove a neat braid for Wen Jingshu. "Mother, you're so good at this," Wen Jingshu obediently complimented her. Lin Qingjun said nothing, yet her eyes softened completely. She brushed a light hand against her daughter's uninjured shoulder before turning to head back downstairs to get on with chores. Shortly afterwards, when Yenha came in holding a bowl of red, date tonic water. "Drink this." When Jingshu took it and drank obediently. Sweet warmth slid down her throat, settling in her stomach, easing the dull ache in her lower abdomen quite a bit. "Second brother, do me a favor today." "Speak." "Go to the post office this morning and pick up another parcel. Father collected one batch yesterday. There should be more today." When Yenha nodded, asking no further questions. He was already used to his sister's mysterious, classmate-sourced supplies. When Jingshu handed back the empty bowl and added a reminder, "Don't open it after you fetch it. Wait for me to come down and sort everything out." "Got it." When Yenha carried the bowl back downstairs. After finishing her meal, when Jingshu leaned against the headboard reading. She held trade economics in her right hand while her left arm rested atop the quilt, her posture awkward as an upturned tortoise. She had barely read 2 pages when noise erupted out in the courtyard. Bicycle bells, footsteps, voices, children chattering and shouting. She set the book down at once, ears pricked up. The clan had arrived. When Jingshu inched toward the window and lifted the curtain slightly to peek down. "Aunt." Huzi spotted her first. He tilted his head up, cupped his hands around his mouth like a megaphone and yelled at the top of his voice, "Aunt, come down. Grandma brought meat for you. It smells so good." His shout drew every pair of eyes in the compound upward toward the window. Dozens of gazes landed squarely on Wen Jingshu. She shrank her neck in embarrassment, yet it was already too late. "Jingshu, stay upstairs, don't come down." Grandma called up. "Your arm and knee are hurt. The stairs are steep. What if you fall? I'll come up to see you." She thrust her bamboo basket into Lin Qingjuan's hands and stomped briskly upstairs. Her pace was so spry she out-paced many young men. Footsteps thundered onward, a small troop charging uphill. The next instant the door swung open. Warm concern and noisy bustle flooded into the room all at once. Grandma Zhouguolan was the first to rush forward. She took Wen Jingshu's hand and looked her over from head to toe. Her gaze lingered on her left arm. Though covered by her sleeve, the old woman's eyes were sharper than X-rays. She immediately noticed how stiffly the arm was propped. Her face darkened. She spun sharply around and fixed Wen Zhongping in the doorway with a blazing stare. Wen Zhongping. There was unassailable authority in that call, making Wen Zhongping jolt. "Mother," he replied respectfully. "You are chief of public security. Your own daughter was chased down with a knife right under your nose. How do you hold that position?" When Zhongping opened his mouth yet could find no words. "If you cannot keep her safe, I will take her back to the old family home. Every neighbor on that old street lane knows her. Someone will always keep an eye out. Far safer than this cadre compound." When Zhongping's face flushed bright red. "Mother, this was an accident." "Accident? Your daughter has stitches in her arm, and you call this an accident?" Grandma raised her voice. "If you cannot do your job as chief, come home and grow vegetables with me. Let your eldest brother take your post." A cough sounded from the doorway. Eldest uncle Wen Zhongshan pushed through the crowd, looking helpless. "Mother, please calm down." He stood beside her. Third brother meant no harm. Nobody could have foreseen that villain targeting Jingshu. "That's right," second uncle Wen Zhongyi squeezed in as well. "Mother, sit down." Don't tire yourself standing. Grandma shot when jumping a fierce glare, her dissatisfaction practically tangible. Then she turned back, grasped Wen Jingshu's hand again, and her tone softened to melted sugar, thick with distress. Does it hurt? My child, Grandma's eyes reddened. Her lips trembled several times before she could speak. How could you be so reckless? That man meant harm. What if something terrible had happened to you? How would Grandma go on living? When Jingshu quickly wrapped her right arm around Grandma's shoulders and patted her back. Grandma, I'm fine, truly. Look, I'm right here. It is only a cut on my arm, just a few stitches. I will get the sutures out in a few days. Only a few stitches? Grandma's voice rose. Do you think I don't know what stitches feel like? Your grandfather had appendicitis surgery once. 7 stitches, and he howled in pain for 3 whole days. Grandpa Wendy, abruptly named, looked somewhat sheepish. That was different, that was major surgery. You hush, Grandma said without turning her head. Grandpa fell silent at once. All the men in the Wen family seemed to share that fine tradition. Grandma brushed her fingers lightly over the gauze. Stitches hurt. When you scraped your knee as a little girl, you cried for hours and nothing I did soothed you. When Jingshu parted her lips, but said nothing in rebuttal. I stitched wound throbs the next day. You might fool your father, but not me. Later, when you fell out of a tree and scraped your knee, you told me, Grandma, it doesn't hurt. Yet you whimpered through the night. Do you think I forgot? When Jingshu said no more. Seeing her granddaughter's guilty look, Zhou Guilan tapped her cheek gently. You have always been stubborn. If it hurts, say so. You have no reason to hide it from Grandma. Grandpa cleared his throat, pulled a red envelope from his pocket and pressed it into Wen Jingshu's hand. Take this. Buy good food to nourish your body. Wen Jingshu made to decline, but Grandma shot her a warning look that read, dare not accept and see what happens. Eldest uncle drew an envelope from his pocket and set it on the nightstand. Your aunt, in-law Lu Guifang, prepared that for you. Wen Jingshu tried to refuse again, but eldest uncle waved his hand. Don't argue. She wisely held her tongue. She tucked the envelope under her pillow, alongside Grandpa and Grandma's red envelope. Aunt, in-law Lu Guifang pushed out from behind eldest uncle, plopped herself down on the edge of the bed and nudged Grandma aside. Jingshu, you scared me half to death. You look so quiet ordinarily, yet how bold you are. That man was going to, all right. Eldest uncle tugged at her sleeve. Don't upset the child. Me upsetting her? She is the one who scared me. Lu Guifang shot her husband a sharp glance, then turned back to Wen Jingshu. Girl, you are truly remarkable. Yesterday at the neighborhood meeting, the director held you up as an outstanding county citizen, brave, quick, witted, an example for everyone to learn from. Eldest uncle tugged her sleeve once more. Let her rest. Don't keep chattering. Second uncle Wen Zhongyi laughed, crinkling the corners of his eyes. Jingshu, you have brought honor to our whole family. News spread all over my office yesterday that my niece apprehended a dangerous criminal. Colleagues kept asking whether it was true. I told them of course it is. That's my niece, takes after me. When Jingshu could not help smiling. Second uncle, what trait of yours do I take after? My fearless spirit. Wen Zhongyi declared confidently. When I was younger, I cycled 60 li from the county seat all the way to the city. On the road, I met a wild dog and I kicked. I thought you said you threw stones at it. Wen Rulan cut in dryly, tearing through his boasting without mercy. When Zhangyi's train of thought derailed. He coughed. The point is I had guts. Jingshu gets that from me. Wang Rulan ignored him. She walked to the bed and set an enamel basin on the nightstand, lifting its lid. Rich savory sauce aroma wafted out. Braised pork ribs lay neatly stacked, glossy deep, brown, sprinkled with white sesame seeds. Your second uncle bought the ribs specially yesterday and simmered them all afternoon, Wang Rulan explained. When Jingshu caught second uncle looking faintly embarrassed. Thank you, second uncle. Thank you, second aunt-in-law. When Zhongyi waved his hand, pulled out another envelope and slipped it under her pillow. Take this. Next came the cousins and their spouses. Eldest cousin Wen Jiangwo wore a crisp Zhongshan suit with 2 pens clipped to his breast pocket. Jingshu, what you did counts as meritorious conduct. The county takes it very seriously. Our office has submitted your file. The municipal authorities may make you a model citizen. You will need to give a speech at the commendation ceremony. Prepare in advance. Wen Jingshu, a speech. Of course. You are a hero. Who else would address the crowd? The thought made her scalp prickle. She would rather relive that alley confrontation with the criminal than stand on a stage speaking to hundreds of people. Yet facing eldest cousin's earnest, glorious task assigned by the organization expression, she kept her misgivings to herself. Sun Xiaomei's eyes grew misty beside him. Jingshu, this is something from your cousin and me. Buy nourishing food. Don't hold back. Good health is the capital of revolution. Another envelope. When Jingshu had lost count of how many she had received today, third cousin Wen Jianbang pushed through the crowd. His hair was neatly combed, looking sharp and energetic. His wife Chen Shaoan held baby Nianhua in her arms. The toddler buried his face against her neck, peeking shyly at Wen Jingshu with one eye. Wen Jingshu smiled and held out her arms. Nianhua, will auntie hold you? Little Nianhua hesitated, then slowly stretched out chubby little hands toward her. Chen Shaoan laughed as she passed the baby over, warning, mind your injured arm. I'm fine. I'll hold him with my right arm. When Jingshu settled the toddler against her, he was soft and warm, smelling of milk mixed with vanishing cream. Nianhua draped over her shoulder, tiny fingers tangling in her braid, and babbled, "Dudu." Auntie, when Jingshu corrected gently. "Dudu," the toddler insisted. "Very well, Dudu it is," when Jingshu yielded. Chen Shaoan smiled sheepishly and pulled out an envelope for her. "Jingshu, this is from Jianbang and me." When Jianbang nodded, "Take good care of your injuries." Then second cousin Wen Jianjun arrived straight from the transport team. He wore crumpled work clothes smudged with machine oil, having ridden over directly from the depot. He strode inside, looked Wen Jingshu over thoroughly, and only relaxed once he confirmed she had suffered no grievous harm. "Jingshu, don't ever be so reckless again." His voice was hoarse from riding through wind. "If something terrible happened to you, what would grandfather and grandmother do? What would father and mother do?" When Jingshu nodded obediently. When Jianjun pulled an envelope out of his pocket and pressed it into her palm. "Take it. I spend long stretches away on haulage runs. Buy yourself nice things to eat." Second cousin. "Take it." When Jianjun clamped his hand over hers with firm strength, brooking no refusal. "I won't rest easy out on the road unless you do." When Jingshu had no choice but to accept it. Second cousin, in-law Li Xiaolan, stepped out from behind him, took Wen Jingshu's hand gently. "Does it hurt, Jingshu?" "It does not hurt anymore, second cousin, in-law." Li Xiaolan glanced at the gauze wrapped around her left arm. Her eyes stung with tears she forced back. She turned and headed for the kitchen to help, saying nothing further. Last of all came fourth cousin Wen Jianmin, dressed in blue work, clothes marked with stubborn oil stains. He carried a cardboard box holding an electric fan. "Fourth cousin, what is this?" "I built it myself." When Jianmin scratched the back of his head. "I got some scrap material approved at the factory. Summer is coming and your room faces the sun, it gets sweltering. This fan should help." He lifted the fan out of the box, set it on the table and plugged it in. When he flipped the switch, the blades hummed to life, blowing a pleasant mild cool breeze. When Jianmin fished out an envelope and handed it over. "This is a little something for me. I don't earn much, don't think it's too little. Fourth cousin, you ought to keep this for yourself." "I have enough," when Jianmin cut her off. "Take it. You went through so much hardship. I cannot do much else, so I built you this fan." When Jingshu felt both amused and touched. Under her pillow, envelopes and red envelopes bulged uncomfortably. She nodded firmly and placed the fan on her nightstand. As its breeze brushed over her, she felt like the happiest person in Qingping County. Grandma asked, "Can you make your way downstairs by yourself?" "I can." When Jingshu pushed her quilt aside and swung her legs over the bed edge. Her right knee was still swollen and would not bend, but she could bear weight on it straight. Grandma watched as she planted her foot carefully on the floor and stood supporting herself on the bed frame. Her brows drew tight enough to crush a mosquito. "Don't try walking." She turned to Wen Jianmin. "Fourth boy, carry your sister down." When Jianmin knelt down without hesitation, his back toward her. "Climb on." "Fourth cousin, I can manage." "Your knee won't even bend." "How will you negotiate the stairs?" "Hop down?" "You'll fall." "Come on." When Jingshu obediently climbed onto his back. He supported her bent leg in the crook of his arm and stood rock, steady, no wobble at all. "Fourth cousin, am I heavy?" "Yes." "Couldn't you lie a little?" "Why lie? You have put on weight for sure. You have been lying at home these days and third aunt keeps feeding you soups. Of course you gained weight." When Jingshu tapped the back of his head lightly, he laughed and carried her securely down the stairs. Everyone had gathered in the main hall. The younger children, Huzi, Daodu, and Nianhua, ran about. They darted into the kitchen sneaking snacks, chased chickens in the courtyard, then crowded around Wen Jingshu. They tilted their little faces to stare at the gauze on her injured arm. Huzi was the eldest, 6 years old, and already starting to look like a little young man. He stood before Wen Jingshu, hands planted firmly on his hips, his brows drawn tight. "Auntie, who bullied you? Tell me, and I'll beat him up." Wen Jingshu laughed at him. "That man's already been arrested." Huzi froze for a moment, clearly disappointed to hear their foe had already been dealt with. But he quickly puffed out his chest again. "If anyone bullies you next time, call me. I can run really fast." Daoda chimed in beside him in a milky voice. "I can run fast too." Nyangao couldn't speak yet, but let out a timely series of sounds to show he wasn't going to be left out. When Jingshu pulled each of the 3 little ones over one by one and kissed them, making them giggle nonstop. Wen Zhongping, Wen Zhongshan, and Wen Zhongyi, the 3 brothers, set up a large round table in the yard, borrowed from a neighbor. The tabletop was so big a person could lie flat on it. Wen Zhongping carried the chairs, Wen Zhongshan spread the tablecloth, and Wen Zhongyi took charge of directing. "A bit to the left, further left, that's enough, wait, it's crooked." Sweat dripped down Wen Zhongping's face from following the orders. He turned and shot his brother a glare. "Can you stop just barking orders?" Wen Zhongyi replied matter-of-factly. "This is exactly what I do at the Transportation Bureau." Wen Zhongping fell silent. Several sisters-in-law sat at a square table sorting vegetables. Sun Xiaomei picked chives as she chatted. "Jingshu, I heard you've been assigned to the purchasing section of the Supply and Marketing Cooperative. That's such a good post. I report for duty next Monday." When Jingshu sat down beside them and picked up a handful of chives to help out. Her left hand rested motionless on the table, leaving her posture a little awkward, but she was glad to lend a hand where she could. "The purchasing section is excellent," Li Xiulian said in her usual soft voice. "Far better than standing behind the counter. You get an office seat and don't have to stay on your feet all day. It's not all desk work." When Jingshu smiled. "The purchasing section means business trips, heading out to the countryside and sometimes further afield. But I like being on the move, I can't stand staying cooped up indoors." Just then, the courtyard gate creaked open again. When Yenha cycled in, a large parcel strapped to the back rack and another hanging from the handlebars. He steadied the bike, unloaded the packages, and carried them into the main room. He set the parcels down on the square table and wiped sweat from his forehead. "Sisterly at the post office said your classmate sent quite a lot of goods. She stored them separately for you. Father picked up this parcel yesterday, and this one arrived early this morning, so I brought everything over." She asked her second brother to help her undo the wrappings and began sorting the items. From inside the parcels, when Jingshu pulled out 3 skirts. Chinese-style apricot-colored A-line midi skirts, crafted from high-count cotton blend fabric that fell neatly and felt smooth to the touch. The 3 skirts were folded perfectly. When she unfolded them, silence briefly fell over the main room. The 3 sisters-in-law stared, eyes wide. Eldest sister-in-law, second sister-in-law, third sister-in-law, come over here. Sun Xiaomei, Li Xiulian, and Qin Shaoan walked over. When Jingshu handed 1 skirt to each of them. "My classmate sent these from Shanghai. They're from Friendship Store, this new Chinese style. Try them on." Sun Xiaomei unfolded her skirt the moment she took it, her eyes lighting up instantly. This is far too valuable." She stroked the fabric, unable to tear her eyes away. "Jingshu, how much did something like this cost?" "It wasn't expensive. My classmate got them for me at an internal price." When Jingshu smiled. "Eldest sister-in-law, you have fair skin. This shade will suit you wonderfully." Li Xiulian took her skirt and held it up against herself. She was not tall, but had lovely proportions. Just holding the skirt against her made her whole appearance brighten. "Jingshu, I don't know." Li Xiulian looked embarrassed. "I spend most days wearing a white coat at the health clinic. I hardly get the chance to wear skirts. All the more reason to own one." When Jingshu said. "Second sister-in-law, you have such a nice figure. It'll look gorgeous on you. When the weather warms up, wear it for a stroll and let brother Jianjun see." Li Xiulian's cheeks flushed, and she stole a glance at Wen Jianjun. He was squatting on the threshold eating crisp peach cakes. He lifted his head at those words and grinned. "Wear it. If you've got it, wear it. My wife looks beautiful in anything." Li Xiulian rolled her eyes at him, yet her lips tugged upward in a smile. Qin Shaoan turned her skirt over and over, eyes sparkling. Jingshu, I've heard people at the broadcasting station talk about skirts like this. They say this Chinese style is the latest fashion in Shanghai. Our station chief went to a meeting in the provincial capital last month and bought something similar for more than 20 yuan. Then third sister-in-law got a real bargain when Jingshu laughed. Chen Shaoan carefully folded the skirt and tucked it into her cloth bag. I'm wearing this to work tomorrow. While the three sisters-in-law held up the skirts to try them in the main room, the brothers stood by with varied expressions. When Jingwo pushed his glasses up his nose, watching his wife's delight, the corners of his mouth lifted gently. He said nothing. His wife's happiness was his happiness. When Jianbang held Nyangao in his arms, watching Chen Shaoan spin around with the skirt, his expression was complicated, torn between thinking my wife looks lovely and worrying will other men stare when she wears such a pretty skirt outside. When Jianjun was the most straightforward, he stepped forward to help Li Xiulian fold her skirt and tuck it into her sack, then turned to Wen Jingshu. Thanks, Jingshu. Your sister-in-law will look even nicer once she puts it on. Li Xiulian tapped his arm lightly, her face still pink. When Jingshu sorted the remaining goods into separate piles, 5 towels for each household, 2 tubes of toothpaste each, 5 bars of laundry soap each, 2 caddies of red dates each, 5 apples each, 10 salted duck eggs each, 10 pork sausages each, 10 bundles of dried noodles each, 3 boxes of dragon beard crisp each, 2 boxes of mixed nuts each. She told Wen Yanhe to wrap each share and stack them neatly on the square table in the main room. Aunt Bo Lu Guifang picked up her share, looked everything over and sighed admiringly. Jingshu, you have such impressive connections. Towels, toothpaste, salted duck eggs, all hard-to-get supplies. Second Aunt Wang Rulin picked up her bundle and felt the towel. She nodded. This towel really is good, far softer than the one sold at the supply and marketing cooperative. You're so thoughtful, Jingshu. When Jingshu waved her hand with a smile. It's nothing. You've all looked after me so well over the years. The young children crowded closer. Little Huzi stared at the dragon beard crisp, mesmerized, but he did not reach out. His mother had taught him never to take food unless it was offered. When Jingshu noticed, she opened a box of dragon beard crisp, gave 2 pieces to Huzi, 2 to Daodu, and broke off a small piece for Nyangao. The 3 children held the crisp and ate, their faces covered in soybean flour. Huzi finished quickly in 2 bites, then stared at Wen Jingshu hopefully. Auntie, can I have more? Of course. When Jingshu handed him another 2 pieces. Eat slowly, don't choke. Daodu ate slowly, nibbling bit by bit. Nyangao squeezed his crisp in his fist, crushing it all over his face and neck. He then looked up and smiled at Wen Jingshu, revealing 4 tiny baby teeth, looking just like a little laughing Buddha. When Jingshu leaned forward to wipe his face, but he giggled and dodged, starting a little game of chase. Chen Shaoan watched and laughed. Nyangao is usually shy. He cries when anyone else holds him, but he's so attached to you. That's because I'm his favorite aunt. When Jingshu lifted Nyangao into her arms, the little one rested on her shoulder, small arms looped around her neck, his soft cheek pressed warm against hers. Lunch was served promptly at 12 o'clock. Platters of food were carried out one after another, filling the entire table. Braised spare ribs, red braised pork, yellow braised chicken, sweet and sour fish, chive omelette, tofu with spring onions, stir-fried spinach, vinegar potato shreds. In the center sat a large basin of pork rib soup, rich and milky white, sprinkled with chopped green onions and goji berries. Lin Qingjun and the aunts and sisters-in-law had prepared everything, busy from early morning. All the elder aunts were skilled cooks, each bringing their best dishes to the table, filling the yard with wonderful aromas. Grandpa sat at the head of the table, Grandma to his left and Wen Zhongping to his right. Everyone else took their seats according to age and seniority. Huzi and Daodu almost came to blows arguing over who got to sit next to their aunt. Auntie, sit beside me. No, sit next to me. Auntie, hold me. In the end, their mothers pulled them apart, placing one on either side of Wen Jingshu. Huzi sat on Wen Jingshu's left, Daodu on her right, and Nyangao rested across her knees. Chen Shaoan said, let his aunt hold him for a while, and set Nyangao in her lap before going to fetch rice. Nyangao slouched on her legs, drooling steadily, and soaking a large patch of her trousers. When Jingshu glanced down and chuckled. Nyangao, are you giving my trousers a wash? Nyangao let out a string of, as if replying you're welcome. Surrounded by the three little ones, Wen Jingshu kept her left arm resting carefully on the table and used her right hand to pat one child's head and pinch another's cheek, happily occupied. Grandpa lifted his wine glass, filled with a bottle Wen Zhongping had kept stored for years, rarely touched. He brought it out specially for today. He cleared his throat, and chatter across the table faded. Today, Grandpa's voice was quiet yet firm, carrying to every person present, "Our whole family can sit together and share this meal because Jingshu is safe." He paused and looked at Wen Jingshu, glistening emotion in his eyes. "Jingshu, I taught school all my life. I am not proudest of all the students I educated. I am proudest of you." Wen Zhongping made a sound, about to speak, but Grandma silenced him with a sharp glance. "Grandpa, Wen Jingshu tried to speak, but Grandpa held up a hand to stop her. "No need to be modest." He raised his glass. "You are a daughter of the Wen family, and you make us proud." Wen Jingshu lifted her own cup, filled with red date water poured by Lin Qingjun, and clinked it against Grandpa's glass. "Thank you, Grandpa." Then eldest uncle Wen Zhongshan stood up with his glass. "Jingshu, I'm not good with words. You've done something remarkable this time, and I'm proud to be your uncle. Work hard at the supply and marketing cooperative. If you run into trouble, I will help however I can." Second uncle Wen Zhongyi rose next. "Jingshu, I work at the Transportation Bureau. If the purchasing section ever needs vehicles, drivers, or transport arrangements, come straight to me. We are family, no need for formalities." Eldest cousin Wen Jiangwo pushed his glasses up. "Jingshu, don't worry about matters in the county. I've finished organizing all the paperwork. I'll keep an eye on the commendation ceremony to ensure nothing goes wrong." Second cousin Wen Jianjun was the most direct. He drained his glass in one gulp. "Jingshu, I'm not one for fancy speeches. If anyone ever bullies you, tell me. I'll drive my big truck to sort them out." Li Xiulian tugged his sleeve and whispered, "Don't talk nonsense." Wen Jianjun scratched his head. "I was just saying." The whole table laughed. When Jingshu looked at her family, all raising their glasses and speaking sincere words from the heart, her throat suddenly tightened and her eyes stung. She lowered her head and pretended to sip her drink. Midway through the meal, the race to pile food on her plate began. First came Grandma. Her chopsticks darted straight to the largest, meatiest rib. She lifted it across half the table and set it onto Jingshu's bowl. "Jingshu, this one's good, full of marrow. Eat it to regain your strength." Before Wen Jingshu could reply, Grandpa's chopsticks arrived. A chunk of glossy red braised pork, fat and lean perfectly layered, landed on top of her rice, pressing the grains down into a small indentation. "Your grandmother gave you a bone. This is proper meat," Grandpa Wendesheng said confidently. Grandma glared at him. "What do you mean just a bone? The meat clinging to ribs is the tastiest." "You know nothing." "I know good food," Grandpa replied slowly. Grandma could not think of a retort. She picked up another rib with plenty of meat and dropped it firmly into Wen Jingshu's bowl with a sharp tap, just like placing a chess piece. Wen Jingshu watched a mound of food rapidly building on her plate. Before she could say she had enough, Wen Zhongping's chopsticks arrived, carrying a generous portion of chive omelette, golden and green, covering half the braised pork. "Daughter, eat more chives, good for your eyes." Lin Qingjun set down her soup bowl and added stir-fried spinach. "Spinach replenishes iron. You lost a lot of blood, so eat plenty." When Jingshu stared at her bowl, ribs, braised pork, chive omelette, and spinach were stacked in layers, completely burying the rice beneath a colorful little hill. She was about to say she could not eat any more when Yenhe reached over with his chopsticks. He picked up one of her ribs. All eyes turned to him. Calmly, when Yenhe placed the rib on an empty plate, carefully stripped all meat from the bone, and returned only the tender flesh to her bowl. "That bone is too big. It'll be awkward for you to hold with one injured arm." Huzi had watched the adults carefully and could hold back no longer. He stood on his stool, stretched out and tilted his spoon to slide half a spoonful of omelette toward Wen Jingshu's bowl. The spoon wobbled and the egg nearly spilled onto the table, but Sun Xiaomei quickly steadied it, letting the food land safely. "Auntie, you can have mine," Huzi announced solemnly, as if completing an important mission. Seeing his elder brother take the lead, Daodu panicked. Abandoning his spoon, he plunged his small hand into his bowl, grabbed a handful of rice and pressed it onto Wen Jingshu's meal. Rice grains stuck all over his palm and smudged Wen Jingshu's sleeve, but he paid no attention. He tilted his face upward, waiting for praise. "Auntie, I gave you my rice too." When Jingshu stared at the compact ball of warm rice pressed against her sleeve, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Sun Xiaomei and Li Xiulian stood up at once, one grabbing Huzi and the other pulling Daodu away. Huzi wriggled, shouting that he wanted to feed his aunt, while Daodu cried that he had already shared his food. Chaos briefly erupted. When Jingshu looked down at the mound of food piled from everyone's kindness in her bowl, she leaned forward and began to eat heartily. Her cheeks bulged like a hamster storing grain. It tasted wonderful. Every single mouthful was delicious. A little later, Huzi climbed down from his stool and trotted over to tug her sleeve. "Auntie, does your arm still hurt?" "Not anymore." Huzi thought for a moment and pulled a sweet out of his pocket. "Have this candy. It'll make the pain go away." Daodu saw this and also pulled a sweet from his pocket, pressing it into her other hand. "Take mine. It's bigger than brothers." When Jingshu drew both boys close and kissed each on the cheek, Huzi shyly wiped his face, unable to hide his wide smile. Daodu wrapped both arms around her neck and refused to let go, murmuring softly, "Auntie is the best." He climbed straight onto her lap, grabbed a rib and gnawed at it until sauce covered his face. When he finished, he wiped his greasy hands all over Wen Jingshu's clothes. Li Xiulian hurried to lift him away, but Daodu protested loudly, calling out for his aunt and reaching toward her with sticky hands. Nyangao sat in Qin Xiaoyun's arms, quietly drinking rice paste. He took a sip, glanced at Wen Jingshu and grinned, showing 2 tiny teeth, then took another sip and looked again, like a little nodding doll. Wen Jingshu's heart felt soft and sweet, melted like cotton candy by the 3 little ones. The whole family sat eating together. Chopsticks tapped against bowls, children chattered nonstop, and grown-ups chatted and laughed. Wen Zhongping rarely drank much, but he had 2 cups today, his face flushed red. Lin Qingyun shot him several warning glares, yet each time he secretly poured himself a little more. Wen Zhongshan and Wen Zhongyi clinked glasses, reminiscing about their childhood, talking more and more animatedly. Wen Zhongshan teased that Wen Zhongyi once stole cured meat from home and was chased all over the yard by Grandpa. Wen Zhongyi retorted that Wen Zhongshan once wrote a love letter to a classmate at school, got caught by the teacher and forced to stand in punishment all afternoon. The brothers exposed each other's old mischief and ended up laughing loudly. Grandma listened beside them and cut in from time to time. "Neither of you can talk. You were both terribly naughty. If your father and I hadn't kept you in line, you would have run wild." Once the meal ended, when Jingshu tried to help clear the bowls, but the 3 sisters-in-law herded her back into a chair. "You still have stitches in your arm. You can't wash dishes." Sun Xiaomei pushed her down onto the seat. "Sit still and let us handle this." Li Xiulian stacked bowls and carried them toward the kitchen. "Your only job today is to rest." Qin Shaowen set Nyangao into her arms. "Just hold your nephew." When Jingshu sat on the stone bench beneath the jujube tree with Nyangao in her embrace. Full and sleepy, the little one's head drooped forward repeatedly until he finally rested it on her shoulder and fell asleep. Huzi and Daodu squatted at her feet, each holding a stick to draw pictures on the ground. Huzi drew something that looked like a chicken, with a head, legs and tail, though its head was bigger than its body and its legs thicker than its head. Daodu drew a circle and said it was Auntie. When Jingshu stared at the 3 overlapping circles. "Daodu, is my face really round?" Daodu looked up at her, then back at his drawing and nodded earnestly. "Round." When Jingshu gave up arguing. It was past 2 in the afternoon when grandfather and grandmother said they were leaving. Grandmother took Wen Jingshu's hand, her eyes growing red again. "You've got work tomorrow. Don't tire yourself out. Don't ride the bicycle until your arm fully heals. Ask your father to drive you." "I know, grandmother. If the canteen food isn't tasty, have your mother pack meals for you." "I know, grandmother. If anyone in the purchasing section bullies you, come tell me. I'll go talk to their supervisor." When Jingshu smiled. "Grandmother, what will you say to our supervisor?" Grandmother spoke firmly. "I'll tell him my granddaughter once caught a murderer. If anyone dares mistreat you, I'll have my granddaughter bring them in too." When Jingshu let out a helpless laugh. Grandfather stood by, waiting for grandmother to finish her litany before stepping forward. He pulled an envelope out of his pocket and pressed it into her hand. When Jingshu moved to refuse it, but grandfather held her wrist firmly. "This is from me alone," grandfather said quietly. "The money your grandmother gave you this morning is from both of us. This is savings I've set aside secretly. She knows nothing about it." When Jingshu froze. Grandfather winked at her. "Don't tell your grandmother." When Jingshu nodded hard and slipped the envelope into her pocket. Her eldest uncle and second uncle's families took their leave one after another. Before departing, each person pulled Wen Jingshu aside to offer advice. Take good care of your injury. Don't be nervous on your first day of work. Come to your eldest uncle if you run into trouble. Your second uncle works at the Transportation Bureau. If you need transport, manpower, or connections, don't hesitate to ask. As her cousins left, each slipped something into her hands. Wen Jiangwo gave her a notebook. On the inside cover was neatly written, Comrade Jingshu, achieve new merits in your new post, handwriting honed from years of office work. When Jianbang handed her a fountain pen engraved with the words Cultural Center Souvenir. It was likely a work unit gift he had treasured and saved for her. When Jianjun pressed a crumpled stack of banknotes into her palm and turned to leave at once, leaving her no chance to decline. When Jianmin was the last to go. He readjusted the electric fan's speed to make sure it worked properly, then stood up. Fourth cousin, you made such a wonderful fan, Wen Jingshu said sincerely. When Jianmin scratched the back of his head. As long as it works. I'll see if I can build a smaller one for you to keep in your office later. He reached the courtyard gate and glanced back at her. Jingshu, call me anytime you need something. I'll come right away. I got it, fourth cousin. When Huzi left, he clung tightly to Wen Jingshu's legs. Little aunt, get better soon. When you're well, take me to look for bird nests. Huzi. Sun Xiaomei swatted his rear. You can't disturb bird nests. But little aunt did before. Dad told me. Dadu cried as they left, his face covered in tears and snot. Li Xiulian wiped his face while trying to soothe him. Nyang'ao was still asleep, held in Qin Xiaoyun's arms, his small face buried against his mother's shoulder, soundly dozing. The courtyard fell quiet all at once after all the guests departed. Lin Qingjun closed the courtyard gate and leaned against the wooden doorframe, letting out a long breath. When Yenha began gathering up the tables and stools in the yard. When Jingshu sat on the stone bench beneath the jujube tree, a blanket draped over her knees. She watched her family going about their chores and suddenly laughed softly. What are you laughing at? When Yenha asked. Nothing much. She kept smiling and swept her gaze across the courtyard. I just think our family is wonderful. It would be perfect if eldest brother was here too. When Yenha glanced at her and said nothing. A little while later, he brought over a bowl of red date water and set it beside her. Mom told you to drink this. When Jingshu picked it up and took a sip. It was warm and sweet. Second brother. Will you take me to report for duty tomorrow? Yes. Is Mom coming too? Yes. What about Dad? Dad said he'll ask for 2 hours of leave tomorrow morning. He'll head to the bureau after dropping you off. When Jingshu pictured the scene and smiled. Second brother, imagine tomorrow when I show up at the supply and marketing cooperative with 3 adults trailing behind me. Won't it look a little over the top? People might think I've come to inspect the workplace. When Yenha pictured the sight and smiled as well. Let it be grand. You've just earned a major merit. Everyone across the county knows Director Wen's daughter caught a murderer. If you slip in quietly to report for duty, people will only think you're putting on an act. Hold your head high, it's fine. When Jingshu thought it over and saw his point. All right then. She took another sip of red date water. Tomorrow I'll march into the supply and marketing cooperative with my personal escort, making a proper entrance. When Yenha walked over and crouched beside her. Shall we head upstairs? Okay. He turned his back to her. When Jingshu climbed onto his back, looping her right arm around his neck. When Yenha carried her slowly up the stairs, step by step. Second brother. Everyone gave me so much money today. Keep it. I didn't turn any of it down. You wouldn't have managed to refuse anyway. When Jingshu rested her cheek against his back and let out a muffled laugh. Once inside the room, when Yenha set her gently on the bed, propped pillows behind her back, and carefully positioned her injured left arm on top of the quilt. Get a good rest this afternoon. You need to get up early for your first day tomorrow. I know. She glanced toward the envelopes tucked under her pillow. She opened each envelope one by one and counted the money inside. Grandmother had given 200 yuan, grandfather another 200. Her eldest uncle gave 200, her second uncle 200. Eldest cousin gave 100, second cousin 100, third cousin 100, fourth cousin 100. 1,200 yuan in total. When Jingshu stared at the stack of banknotes for a long time, lost in thought. The first thing when Jingshu did upon waking was move her leg. She bent her right knee. No pain, that was good. She bent it again. Still no ache. The previous night, when Yenha had come into her room with safflower oil while she was reading in bed. Without a word, when Yenha rolled up her trouser leg, poured half the bottle of safflower oil into his palms and rubbed them warm before slapping it onto her knee. The sharp slap made her yelp and drop her book. "Go easy on me, second brother. It won't work if I'm gentle." When Yenha kept massaging her knee until the skin burned hot, as if struck by a heavy blow. "The bruising needs to be worked out, otherwise your knee will still hurt when you walk tomorrow. Bear with it." She fought back tears through the whole process, but did not cry. He rubbed her knee for more than 10 minutes. Afterwards, he pressed a hot towel against it, applied another layer of oil, then wrapped the knee loosely with bandages. The treatment worked remarkably well. Most of the swelling on her knee had gone down. Though the skin was still tinged yellowish, blue, bending her knee no longer caused pain. Good, she could walk. The gauze covering her left arm remained clean white, but the wound itched terribly. It was the itch of new tissue growing, like thousands of ants swarming around the edge of the cut. She could not scratch or rub it, forced to endure the discomfort. After washing up with one hand, she returned to her room, applied children's face cream, then took out her lightweight sunscreen. She squeezed a small amount onto her fingertips, dotted it across her face and patted it evenly into her skin. She studied her reflection in the mirror. Her skin was as fair as a peeled egg. She would be distraught if she got sunburned. Today was Monday, the day she reported for work. Lin Qingjun had washed her hair the night before. The braid her mother had plaited had loosened slightly after sleeping, giving her a soft, attractive look. She fetched her apricot traditional style midi skirt. Made of high-count cotton blend fabric, it held its shape well. The off-white material was printed with faint ink, wash flower patterns, simple and elegant. She pulled the skirt on and spun once. The hem swirled, falling mid-calf, neither too short nor too long, dignified and neat. She paired it with a sky-blue long-sleeved shirt with a modest square collar. Tucking the shirt into the skirt accentuated her waistline. She took the Shanghai wristwatch from under her pillow and fastened it on, then retrieved the vintage bow canvas crossbody bag she had acquired. The bag was off-white with soft, smooth nylon drawstrings, decorated with 2 small bows on the front. Simple yet uniquely stylish. She placed her employment notice, fountain pen, handkerchief, tissue paper, 2 milk candies and cash and grain coupons inside. After a moment's consideration, she also added a box of dragon beard candy. The bag was compact yet roomy. It did not look bulky even after everything was packed away. She slung it over her left shoulder, resting against her hip as she checked her appearance in the mirror. She headed downstairs, holding the banister with her right hand. She stepped down with her left foot first, followed by her right, moving steadily. The aroma of red date millet porridge drifted out from the main room. Bowls and chopsticks were already laid out on the square table. For bowls of porridge, a plate of shredded pickled vegetables, a plate of tofu mixed with spring onions, 4 corn buns, and 4 salted duck eggs. Lin Qingjun carried a bowl of brown sugar ginger tea from the kitchen and set it at Wen Jingshu's place. Steam curled upward from the tea. Brown sugar turned the liquid amber, with thin slices of ginger floating on top. "Drink this." Wen Jingshu sat down obediently, blew on the tea and took a sip. The sweetness of brown sugar blended with the sharp spice of ginger, warming her from her tongue down to her stomach. It instantly eased the dull ache in her lower abdomen. She squinted and took another large mouthful. When Zhangping wore a crisp navy police uniform, every button fastened, including the collar fastener. "Dad, you're dressed so formally. People might think you're heading to a municipal bureau meeting." When Zhangping glanced down at his uniform and chuckled, offering no denial. "My daughter's first day at work. I need to look sharp." He walked to the kitchen doorway, glanced at Wen Jingshu's half-finished breakfast on the table, then looked toward Lin Qingjun, hesitating to speak. Lin Qingjun did not turn around. "Say whatever you want." "Well, Qingjun, do you think I should give Gao Changhe a call?" "About what?" "I was thinking," when Zhangping rubbed his hands together. "Ask him to look out for Jingshu." Lin Qingjun turned to face him, her gaze calm. "Your daughter is going there to work, not to be waited on. You know Gao Changhe well. He cannot stand people relying on family connections. If you don't meddle, he'll respect Jingshu more." When Zhangping was lost for words. "I was just asking. You lose your good sense whenever it concerns our daughter." When Zhangping wisely fell silent. Once breakfast was over, Lin Qingjun cleared away the dishes. When Zhangping wheeled out his 28-inch bicycle. A padded cushion was fastened to the rear seat, sewn overnight by Lin Qingjun to stop Wen Jingxiu from getting sore sitting on the metal frame. The cushion was covered in floral cloth, with tight, neat stitching, soft and plump to look at. When Yanhe brought out his own bicycle, propping it up on one leg, he glanced at Wen Jingxiu. Hop on. Wen Jingxiu climbed onto the rear seat. There was another matching floral cushion there, identical to the one on Wen Zhongping's bicycle. Lin Qingjun had sewn two the previous night. Presumably she had prepared it in case when Yanhe was unavailable to take her, so Wen Zhongping could step in. She sat behind her second brother, wrapping her right arm around his waist and resting her left hand on her lap. Her crossbody bag hung against her thigh. Wen Zhongping and Lin Qingjun each rode their own bicycle. They set off promptly at 8:30. 3 bicycles traveled along the main road outside the family compound toward the supply and marketing cooperative. Aunt Wang was squatting beside the lane washing clothes. She paused mid-swing with her wooden beater at the sight of the procession. Goodness, where's the whole family off to? Reporting for duty. When Zhongping replied loudly, his voice carrying down the street. Jingxiu starts work at the supply and marketing cooperative today. Aunt Wang stood up, wiped her hands on her apron and called out to Wen Jingxiu. Jingxiu, work hard. Bring honor to our compound. Seated on the bicycle, Wen Jingxiu waved to her. Other neighbors along the road overheard and smiled, calling out to her. Take care of yourself. Ride safely to work. Don't hesitate to ask for help if you need anything. When Jingxiu glanced down at her knee, the skirt concealed the yellowish, blue bruise, and walking no longer caused much pain. When Yanhe's half bottle of safflower oil the previous night had done its job. The supply and marketing cooperative stood halfway along the main street, less than 10 minutes bike ride from the residential compound. When Jingxiu caught sight of the 3-story gray brick building from afar, a white sign with black characters hung at the entrance, Qingping County Supply and Marketing Cooperative Union. When Zhongping halted his bicycle at the gate, steadying it with one foot and turning to Wen Jingxiu. We're here. Lin Qingjun walked over, looked her up and down, and tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear. Go on inside. On your first day, listen more, observe more, and speak less. Don't be afraid to ask if you don't understand something. I know, Mom. Eat at the staff canteen at noon. Don't try to save money. When Zhongping pulled a handful of small change and grain coupons from his pocket and pressed them into her palm. The canteen's at the back. Their braised potato with pork is excellent. I've tried it. Dad, I have money. Take it. When Zhongping held her hand firmly. I'll be upset if you refuse your father's money. When Jingxiu had no choice but to accept. Work hard, daughter. If anyone treats you badly, tell me. Dad, I'm going to work, not to get into fights. Trouble can happen anywhere at work. When Zhongping spoke earnestly. I've worked in the Public Security Bureau for years. I've seen all kinds of people. The supply and marketing cooperative seems friendly on the surface, but there are plenty of hidden complications. Keep your wits about you. When Jingxiu nodded, Lin Qingjun reminded her. Head to the personnel section first once you go in. It's on the 2nd floor. Turn right at the top of the stairs, the 3rd room. The section chief is Mr. Su in his 40s, wears glasses. Address him as Section Chief Su. I got it, Mom. After Section Chief Su finishes your paperwork, he may give you some instructions. Just listen carefully, don't ask unnecessary questions. I understand. Lin Qingjun stared at her, lips parting as if to say more, but in the end she only said, go on. The 2 bicycles rode away. When Zhongping glanced back after cycling a few meters and nearly crashed into a roadside telegraph pole. Lin Qingjun chided him, watch where you're going. When Zhongping laughed sheepishly, pushed down on the pedals and smoothly turned the corner. She held the banister and climbed the 2nd floor. Turn right, 3rd room. A small wooden plaque was nailed to the door, white with black lettering, personnel section. She knocked on the door. Come in. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. 2 wooden desks stood beside the window, stacked with folders and forms. A silk banner hung on the wall, embroidered with the words Advanced Unit for Personnel Work, presented by the Municipal Bureau of Commerce. A middle-aged man in his 40s sat behind one desk. He had a square face, black, rimmed glasses, and neatly combed hair. This was Section Chief Su. Good morning, Section Chief Su. I'm Wen Jingxiu, here to report for duty. Section Chief Su lifted his eyes, studied her face briefly, then glanced at the employment notice on his desk. You're Wen Jingxiu? Yes. Section Chief Su pushed his glasses higher, stood up, walked around the desk, and looked her over from head to toe. The one who caught the murderer? A little embarrassed when Jingshu nodded. Excellent. Wonderful. Welcome. I've read your personnel file. You hold a postgraduate degree in trade economics, supervised by Professor Chen from the provincial capital. Our cooperative hasn't recruited anyone with such high academic qualifications in years, and you're a woman who has earned a merit citation. Realizing he had spoken at length, he cleared his throat and resumed the solemn demeanor proper for a personnel section chief. Do you have your notice and identification documents with you? I do. When Jingshu handed them over, he checked the documents and returned them, signed his name on the employment notice, then pulled a form from a drawer and slid it toward her. When Jingshu sat down and began filling it out, she paused at the line asking for family background and wrote cadre. Under main social relations, she listed her father Wen Zhangping, mother Lin Qingjun, eldest brother Su Yenan, and second brother Wen Yanhe. Once finished, she read through the form carefully to check for mistakes before handing it to Su Guocheng with both hands. Su Guocheng read the whole document. His gaze lingered briefly on the main social relations section, then he nodded. He took an official seal from his drawer, stamped the bottom right corner of the form, and signed his name. He filed the completed form away, then took out an employee identity card. He wrote Wen Jingshu's name, department, and position inside. He glued on her 1-inch photograph, then stamped the seal across the corner of the photo. This is your employee pass, meal tickets, and the key to your office desk drawer. Carry the pass with you. You will need it whenever you go out on purchasing assignments. The meal tickets are valid in the staff canteen, 30 jin of grain coupons monthly, which should suffice. Keep the drawer key safe. Thank you, Section Chief Su. You're welcome. Section Chief Su waved his hand, his expression turning serious once more. He stood up and held out his hand. Comrade Wen Jingshu, welcome to Qingfeng County Supply and Marketing Cooperative. Wen Jingshu rose quickly and shook his hand with both of hers. Thank you, Section Chief Su. Comrade Wen Jingshu, we've heard all about what you did. You kept your composure and subdued the assailant under those circumstances. It's truly remarkable. The Supply and Marketing Cooperative needs young people like you, brave and clear-headed. He paused for a moment before adding, still, once you start work, focus on your duties and put safety first. The organization has high hopes for you, and you must also look after yourself. When Jingshu nodded earnestly. Understood, Section Chief Su. I'll keep that in mind. Section Chief Su nodded in satisfaction. Director Gao is waiting for you in his office. Head straight to the 3rd floor. The room at the far eastern end. He phoned down this morning, saying you should go see him first when you arrive. Very well. When Yanhe was waiting for her at the stairwell, leaning against the wall, he straightened up when he saw her emerge. Finished? And then, Section Chief Su told me to see Director Gao on the 3rd floor. When Yanhe nodded, pulled something out of his pocket, and pressed it into her palm. When Jingshu looked down and saw a stack of ration coupons and several banknotes. Grain coupons, meat coupons, oil coupons, cloth coupons, industrial vouchers, neatly stacked and bound together with a rubber band. A few 10-yuan notes were tucked between the coupons. Second brother, what's this? Take it. When Yanhe covered her hand with his. It's your first day at work. Get yourself a decent meal in the cafeteria at noon. Don't scrimp. I'll pick you up after work this evening. Don't head home alone. Second brother, I have money of my own, I know you do. When Yanhe cut her off. This is from me. Take it, so I can rest easy. When Jingshu had no choice but to stow the cash and coupons inside her canvas satchel. Thank you, second brother. No need to thank me. When Yanhe flicked her forehead lightly. Make sure you get plenty of meat at lunch. I will. Your arm can't take heavy strain. Ask someone to carry your food tray for you at mealtime. I know. I finish work at 5 this evening and will come fetch you. Wait for me at the main gate, don't wander off. Second brother, I'm not a small child. You're currently a one-armed warrior, worse off than a toddler. When Yanhe chuckled at his own words. When Jingshu shot him a glare. All right, off you go. Director Gao is waiting. When Yanhe patted her shoulder and turned to walk downstairs. She stood at the stairwell, watching her second brother's figure vanish into the foyer. Then she took a deep breath and climbed toward the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor was quieter than the 2nd. The corridor stretched long, lined with offices, all doors closed. Only the door at the far eastern end stood slightly ajar, a thin streak of light seeping through the crack. A small wooden plaque was nailed to the door, Director's office. She raised her hand and knocked. Come in. Director Gao Changhe's voice drifted out from inside. When Jingshu pushed the door open and stepped inside, Gao Changhe sat behind the desk, wearing a navy Zhongshan suit, poring over a document. He looked up at the sound of the door, spotted her, set the paper aside, and leaned back in his chair. You're here. A faint, barely perceptible smile lingered in his eyes. Good day, Director Gao. When Jingshu gave a slight bow, Gao Changhe tilted his chin toward the chair opposite him. Sit. When Jingshu sat down, rested her satchel on her knees, and placed both hands atop it, sitting upright and proper. Gao Changhe looked her over from head to toe, his gaze lingering on her left arm. Her sleeve covered the gauze dressing, yet he clearly knew where her injury was. Why didn't you rest a few more days? Your arm still has days to go before the stitches come out, doesn't it? My arm is fine, I just can't exert force with it. When Jingshu smiled. My leg is much better, walking doesn't hurt anymore, so it won't interfere with work. Gao Changhe studied her, the corners of his mouth twitching slightly. You certainly are eager. Sitting at home would be idle time. I'd rather come in early. The purchasing section is short-staffed, after all. I want to familiarize myself with the work as soon as possible. Gao Changhe nodded. Old Zhou told me your story, and I've read the circular issued by the Municipal Public Security Bureau. He looked straight at Wen Jingshu, undisguised approval in his eyes. Keeping calm in that situation is no small feat. You've brought honor to your father and to our supply and marketing cooperative. Embarrassed by the praise, Wen Jingshu lowered her head. You flatter me, Director Gao. At the time, I only knew I couldn't let him get away. He wasn't going anywhere. Gao Changhe waved a hand. You struck him perfectly on the back of the head. One blow knocked him unconscious. Your father trained you well. How did everyone know she'd hit him on the back of the head? Word had spread in far too much detail. The stories all over the county. For capturing that fugitive, the Municipal Bureau plans to award you a merit citation, and the county intends to hold you up as a model. Now that you've come to work, reporters will likely come to interview you within the next couple of days. When Jingshu blinked in surprise. An interview? From the county broadcasting station. Gao Changhe glanced at her. Isn't your third sister-in-law Chen Shaoan an announcer there? She is, yes. She won't be the one coming. The station chief will bring a journalist. Just keep it in mind. Gao Changhe waved, dismissing the subject as trivial. Speak honestly during the interview. Don't be nervous. You represent the supply and marketing cooperative, and this brings prestige to our institution. There's another matter. Gao Changhe pulled a document from his desk drawer and slid it across to her. This is a newly issued municipal document on revitalizing commodity circulation. Take it and read it, then write down your thoughts. It doesn't need to be lengthy, just explain your understanding. When Jingshu picked up the document and flipped through it, it was an official red-headed circular several pages long, discussing breaking down administrative fragmentation, promoting commodity exchange, and improving circulation efficiency. She skimmed the contents and quickly grasped the general idea. Very well, Director Gao. I'll read it right away. One more thing. Don't overexert yourself until your arm stitches are removed. Avoid lifting heavy goods or reaching for items placed high up. If you run into any trouble, speak to your section chief or come straight to me. I personally requested to bring you onto the team. I, Gao Changhe, won't let anyone under my watch suffer unfair treatment. When Jingshu paused, then nodded. Thank you, Director Gao. Gao Changhe picked up the telephone on his desk and dialed a number. Hello, Xiaozhou? Come to my office. Less than 2 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. A young woman in her early 20s stepped inside. You called for me, Director Gao? This is Wen Jingshu, the new recruit assigned to the purchasing section. Gao Changhe gestured toward Wen Jingshu. Take her over to the purchasing section to complete her registration and show her around. Xiao Zhou's eyes lit up. She turned toward Wen Jingshu, her mouth falling slightly open, her formal demeanor melting into obvious realization. You're Wen Jingshu? Her voice rose half an octave, brimming with barely contained excitement. The one who caught the murderer? Wen Jingshu smiled at her reaction. That's me. Xiao Zhou looked her up and down, glancing first at her canvas satchel, then her dress, before settling her gaze on her face. She spoke with genuine admiration. You're even more striking than the rumors say. Gao Changhe cleared his throat. Xiao Zhou instantly regained her composure and spoke formally. Comrade Wen Jingshu, my name is Zhou Xiaodang. I work in the secretarial section. Come with me, I'll lead you to the purchasing section. Director Gao, I'll head out now. Gao Changhe nodded, already returning his attention to his documents. When Jingshu followed Zhou Xiaodong out of the director's office. Walking along the corridor, Zhou Xiaodong maintained a steady pace, yet kept up a constant stream of conversation. She walked beside Wen Jingshu and lowered her voice. You've become quite famous. There isn't a single person in the entire supply and marketing cooperative who hasn't heard of you. Just now, several people stopped by the personnel office to ask when you'd report for duty. Wen Jingshu felt a mixture of amusement and helplessness. Why are they so curious about me? They want to see what the heroine who captured a murderer looks like. I'm hardly a heroine. I just happened to be there and didn't lose my nerve. Don't be so modest. Zhou Xiaodong halted mid-step and turned to face her, eyes sparkling. She stepped forward slightly and held out her hand, tone warm and sincere. That doesn't change a thing. You're the pride of our cooperative. From now on, we're colleagues working within the same compound. When Jingshu hesitated briefly before reaching out to shake her hand. Zhou Xiaotong's palm was warm, her grip firm and earnest, as if afraid the famous newcomer might vanish if she let go. She gave Wen Jingshu's hand a gentle shake, her eyes crinkling into crescents. Her tone was wholly genuine. Wen Jingshu, I'm determined to be your friend. If you encounter any issues in the purchasing section, whether you don't understand office rules or have difficult tasks to handle, don't hesitate to find me. I've worked here 3 years. I know everyone, from Director Gao all the way down to the gatekeeper. She leaned closer, voice dropping to a conspiratorial murmur, a glint of mischief in her eyes. To tell you the truth, I wandered back and forth outside the director's office earlier, hoping to meet you first. There aren't many young people at our unit. I'm thrilled to get to know someone as capable and good-looking as you. So you've seen me now? I have. Zhou Xiaodong nodded earnestly. You're even prettier than I imagined. Where did you get that satchel? It's lovely. A school friend sent it from Shanghai. Shanghai. Longing tinged Zhou Xiaotong's tone. I've never left He province in my life. She tugged Wen Jingshu forward again. Come along, I'll introduce you to everyone in your section. Section Chief Xia of Purchasing is a kind older man in his 50s, set to retire in less than a year. He won't bully new staff. Including you, there should be 10 people in the section now. As they neared the corridor corner, Zhou Xiaodong suddenly remembered something and stopped, her expression growing more serious. Oh, I ought to warn you about one thing. There's a young man in your section who started work a few days before you. He comes across as rather arrogant, and word has it he has connections. Be mindful around him. She paused for a beat, then added with quiet anticipation, also, call me when you go to the cafeteria at noon from now on. I'd love to spend more time chatting with you. I heard your arm has stitches and hasn't fully healed, so I can get your meals for you. Infected by Zhou Xiaotong's enthusiastic warmth, Wen Jingshu laughed softly and nodded. She could tell Zhou Xiaodong truly wanted to be her friend. All right, we can eat together from now on. They continued their conversation as they walked downstairs. Office doors lined both sides of the corridor, each fitted with a small wooden sign: business section, finance section, statistics section, purchasing section. Zhou Xiaodong came to a stop before the door at the far eastern end, marked purchasing section. She raised her hand and knocked. Standing at the doorway, Zhou Xiaodong cleared her throat, her voice bright and crisp. Section Chief Xia, the new recruit has arrived for duty. A moment of silence fell inside the office. 7 or 8 pairs of eyes lifted all at once, like a group of cats sunning themselves startled by the sound of an opened food can. When Jingshu stood in the doorway with a moderate, calm smile on her face. She knew full well they were watching her much like visitors gathering to see a newly arrived panda at the zoo. Are you in Jingshu? A voice came from behind the desk furthest inside the room. The speaker was a man in his 50s, with graying hair, a long face, and a pair of reading glasses perched on his nose, his eyes small behind the lenses. This was Section Chief Xia Wengui. Good day, Section Chief Xia. When Jingshu gave a slight bow, Xia Wengui walked out from behind his desk and looked her over. His gaze lingered on her left arm, then moved to her face before he nodded. Good to have you here. Director Gao told me about your arm. Don't carry heavy loads these days, let the younger men take care of such work. He glanced around the office at the male clerks. Do you all hear me? We hear you, we hear you. A round-faced man in his early 30s leaned out from behind his desk, his eyes crinkling into slits when he smiled, looking naturally amiable. Rest assured, Section Chief Xia. Whatever Comrade Wen needs is our responsibility. We won't let her lift so much as a single sheet of paper. Always quick with your tongue. Xia Wengue shot him a look, yet there was no real harshness in it, merely habitual teasing. This is Ma Dishing, a long-serving member of the purchasing section. He's good-natured, only overly talkative. Section Chief Xia, that's unfair. I'm not talkative, I'm friendly. Ma Dishing was unperturbed and grinned wider, waving at Wen Jingshu. Don't listen to him, Comrade 1. I'm easy to get along with. If there's anything you don't understand, ask me. There isn't a thing about the purchasing section that old Ma doesn't know. Beside him, a tall, thin man did not lift his head. He flipped through a notebook and drawled a remark without looking up. Yes, there's nothing he doesn't know, and nothing he won't spread around. Suppressed snickers rippled through the office. Ma Dishing kept his composure. Zhao, you put it wrong. I'm simply sharing information. The tall thin man, Zhao Dihao, finally raised his head, gave Wen Jingshu a brief nod as a greeting, then buried himself in his work again. Wen Jingshu mentally labeled him quiet, diligent, not easy to approach. Xia Wengue ignored their banter and continued introducing the staff. This is Zhao Dihao. That's Lu Jieshi. Xia Wengue pointed to a stocky man seated at the desk near the door. In his mid-30s, his skin was darkened by the sun, and thick rough lines covered the backs of his hands. Lu Jianxi stood up and grinned at Wen Jingshu, revealing a set of white teeth. Comrade 1, shout if you can't carry anything. Don't stand on ceremony. Wen Jingshu smiled and nodded. Thank you, Brother Lu. This is Wang He. Xia Wengue gestured toward a man in his early 30s sitting in the corner. He wore glasses and had a gentle demeanor, stacks of folders piled on his desk. He lifted his head only when his name was called, offered Wen Jingshu a quick smile, then returned to his writing. Her gaze then fell on an empty desk in the corner. That will be your workstation. Xia Wengue pointed toward it. Zhang Yanen sits beside you. She's out purchasing goods at the communes today. Including you, there are only 2 women in our section. Look out for one another. Understood, Section Chief Xia. Sit down. Xia Wengue returned to his seat and handed her a document from his desk. This is the first half-year purchasing summary for our section. Read it to get familiar with our operations. Ask Ma Dishing if anything confuses you. Why me? Ma Dishing poked his head out from behind his chair. Because you talk the most. Xia Wengue and Zhao Dihao spoke in unison. More quiet laughter echoed through the office. Wen Jingshu smiled too. She took the document and settled at her new desk. She hung her satchel over the back of her chair and opened the file to read. It was not thick, only around 10 pages. It categorized all goods purchased by Qingping County Supply and Marketing Cooperative in the first half of the year: grain, non-staple food, daily necessities, agricultural supplies, industrial goods. Each category was followed by a string of figures: purchase volume, procurement price, supplier, and delivery date. She read slowly, line by line, silently converting the figures in her mind as she went. Halfway through reading, she noticed a problem. The suppliers the purchasing section had relied on for the first half of the year were a small, recurring group: the Provincial Material Bureau, Municipal Food Company, and several fixed communes. Their supply channels were stable, stiflingly so. Take enamelware as an example. Only one batch had been sourced from the Provincial Material Bureau, and delivery had taken a full 20 days. Yet, she knew there was an enamel factory in the neighboring city, producing goods of comparable quality at lower prices. Goods shipped by road could reach Qingping in 3 days. She had not learned these details from the document. The commercial trade insights stored in her mind had surfaced automatically. Still, she said nothing for the time being. First day on the job, observe more, speak less. That was the advice her mother had given her. She closed the first document and opened the second draft handed over by Xia Wengue, outlining next month's purchasing plan. She was reading when the office door swung open. A man in his 40s walked inside, of medium build, neither fat nor thin. He had a square face and thick eyebrows, and he moved at a steady, unhurried pace. The atmosphere in the office shifted subtly the moment he entered. Section Chief Su. Ma Dishing was the first to greet him, his tone far more formal than when he spoke to Section Chief Xia. Deputy Section Chief Su Guangcai. Wen Jingshu stood up. Good day, Section Chief Su. I'm Wen Jingshu, reporting for duty today. Su Guangcai's gaze rested on her face for a moment, then he nodded. Sit. Director Gao has spoken to me. You hold a postgraduate degree in trade economics. Work hard. His tone was neutral, neither warm nor cold. With that, He walked to his own desk, sat down, and picked up a document to read. Ma Zhixing winked at Wen Jingshu and mouthed 2 words, "It's fine." Wen Jingshu smiled and sat back down to continue reviewing her papers. Within the section chief was nearing retirement, while the deputy section chief was in his prime, eager to advance his career. With the section chief still in office, the deputy could only wait. She understood this delicate power dynamic clearly. She had no intention of taking sides. She had not come here to pick factions. As noon drew near, the office door opened once more. This time, a woman in her 30s stepped in, wearing a navy linen suit. She had a round face, fair skin, and shallow dimples when she smiled, radiating capable energy. She carried a bulging cloth sack in one hand and spoke loudly as soon as she crossed the threshold. "Good heavens, the roads out to Dongfeng Commune nearly shook me to pieces." She set her cloth sack down on the table, swept her gaze across the office, and her eyes lit up when they landed on Wen Jingshu. "Well, we've got a new recruit. Finally another girl around here." She walked over, grabbed Wen Jingshu's right hand, and looked her up and down, her eyes sparkling as if she'd found a treasure. "You're such a pretty girl. Where'd you get this dress?" "It's lovely. A classmate sent it from Shanghai." Shanghai, Zhang Yanyan's tone carried the same longing as Zhou Xiaotong's. "Clothes from Shanghai really have style. Your handbag is nice too. That bow, wow, such fine craftsmanship." She turned the satchel over in her hands, praising it repeatedly before letting go of Wen Jingshu. "Come to me if you don't understand anything. Work in the purchasing department can seem straightforward, but it has its complications. I'll show you the ropes. Truly beautiful. Our department finally has someone who can hold her own." Amused by her exuberance, Wen Jingshu smiled. "Hello, Sister Zheng. I'm Wen Jingshu. You already know my surname? Did Section Chief Xia tell you about me?" Zhang Yanyan glanced towards Xia Wegui. "Chief, have you been speaking ill of me again?" "When would I speak ill of you? I said you're outgoing." Xia Wegui lifted his enamel mug and took a slow sip of tea. "And that's supposed to be a compliment?" Zhang Yanyan argued. "You tell everyone I'm outgoing, which means you think I talk too much." Laughter rippled through the office. Ma Zhixing laughed loudest of all. "Yans, you've got it backwards. Section Chief Xia is praising you. Take me for example, he just says old Ma runs his mouth, and that's an insult." "That's no insult. That's just stating the facts." Old Zhao didn't even lift his head. The laughter grew louder. Seated at her desk, Wen Jingshu watched them banter. She suddenly thought the purchasing department was quite an interesting place. There was an unspoken understanding forged over years of working alongside one another. Everyone knew each other's temperaments and quirks, yet no one took petty grievances to heart. Zhang Yanyan pulled out account books from her cloth sack as she sat down beside Wen Jingshu, lowering her voice to speak. "Heard about your arm. Got several stitches, right? Don't push yourself. Don't carry heavy things or reach for items up high. Ask De Lu for help with any tough work. He's strong. Might as well make use of him." De Lu heard her from the back and called out with a chuckle. "Sister Zheng, what do you mean, make use of me? I just like helping others." "Sure, you love helping people." Zhang Yanyan didn't turn her head. "Then help me carry this stack of ledgers over to the finance department this afternoon." Shortly past 11, the office doors swung open. 2 men walked in one after another. The man in front was in his early 30s, of medium build, lean and swarthy. He wore a blue canvas work shirt with sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing lean, sun-darkened forearms. He carried a bulging cloth sack, likely having just returned from errands outside. The younger man behind him was 23 or 24, tall and straight, wearing a brand new Zhongshan suit fastened neatly all the way up. His hair was combed immaculately. His eyes darted quickly, scanning everyone in the room as soon as he stepped inside, lingering evenly on each person as if assessing them. Then his gaze settled on Wen Jingshu and paused. "You're back." Xia Wengui looked up. "Let me make introductions." He nodded toward the lean man. "Chen Donghai, one of our long-standing staff members." Chen Donghai smiled at Wen Jingshu, bearing a set of white teeth. The wrinkles crinkling his face made him look like a sun-dried jujube. He set down his sack and stepped forward to shake her hand. His palm was rough as sandpaper, his grip firm yet brief, well-mannered. "Comrade Wen Jingshu, welcome. I heard what happened to you yesterday. You did very well." His voice was hoarse, worn out from running errands all day. "Thank you, Brother Chen." Xia Wegui gestured to the younger man. "Zhao Weigua. He started a few days before you, another new recruit." Zhao Weiguo stepped forward and held out his hand. His hand was pale and slender, nails neatly trimmed. A stark contrast to Qin Donghai's sandpaper-like palms. Comrade Wen Jingshu, it's a pleasure. I'm Zhao Weiguo. His warmth was perfectly measured. I've heard about what you went through. It's truly admirable. We're colleagues now, let's learn from one another. Wen Jingshu shook his hand. Hello. Let's learn from each other. Zhao Weiguo withdrew his hand and took his seat. Once seated, he pulled a notebook, fountain pen, and a pack of cigarettes from his briefcase, arranging them tidily on the desk. He twisted open the pen cap and jotted a few lines in the notebook, presumably noting the date and work records for the day. The office buzzed with activity. Qin Donghai untied his sack and pulled out samples of plump, red-skinned peanuts. He scooped a handful onto Xia Wengui's desk. Section Chief, peanuts from Hika Commune, fresh harvest this year. Take a look at the quality. Xia Wengui picked one, cracked it open, and nodded. Good quality. Did you settle on a price? 28 cents a jean, 2 cents cheaper than last year. Good. Draft a report this afternoon for my approval. Ma Dixing leaned over to peek at Zhao Weiguo's notes. Zhao Weiguo casually slid the notebook aside so he could read. Ma Dixing scanned 2 pages and exclaimed. Beautiful handwriting, looks just like the calligraphy copybooks. Zhao Weiguo smiled, but did not reply. Instead, he took a pack of cigarettes from his drawer and offered one to Ma Dixing. Ma Dixing accepted it and sniffed lightly. Front gate cigarettes. Quality smokes. My father gave them to me. I don't smoke, so they'd only gather dust. Zhao Weiguo pushed the whole pack onto Ma Dixing's desk. You can have them, brother Ma. Ma Dixing's face lit up. I couldn't possibly, he protested, even as he tucked the cigarettes into his pocket. Wen Jingshu lowered her head and continued reviewing account ledgers. Moments later, rapid footsteps echoed down the corridor, growing closer. Zhou Xiaodong poked her head around the doorway, grinning widely. She waved at Wen Jingshu and whispered, Jingshu, time for lunch. Wen Jingshu glanced at the wall clock. It was 11:20, lunch hour. She stood up, slung her satchel over her shoulder, and walked over to Zhou Xiaodong. Zheng Yanyan rose too, holding an aluminum lunchbox, and smiled at Wen Jingshu. Come along, girl. I'll show you where the cafeteria is. The 3 of them headed downstairs. The cafeteria was a red, brick outbuilding in the backyard of the supply and marketing cooperative, with a wooden sign hanging by the door reading staff canteen. Inside, there were 7 or 8 square tables with 4 long benches apiece. 7 or 8 staff members of the cooperative lined up at the serving window, carrying enamel bowls and aluminum lunchboxes, chatting casually. Wen Jingshu peered through the window. Today's dishes were braised pork with potatoes, cabbage stewed with vermicelli, stir, fried bean sprouts, and shredded pickled vegetables. Staples were mixed, grain-steamed buns, and white rice. The meat dish cost 20 cents a portion, no food coupons required. Xiaodong, Sister Zheng, let me treat you both. Zhou Xiaodong blinked in surprise. You're treating us? Yes. My first day at work, I'm in high spirits. Thank you for showing me around this morning, Xiaodong, and thank you for looking out for me, Sister Zheng. She pulled money and food coupons out of her satchel. My arm isn't fully healed though. Could you get the food for me, Xiaodong? Zhou Xiaodong and Zheng Yanyan exchanged a glance. Zheng Yanyan laughed first. All right, I won't turn down your kindness. 1 serving of braised pork with potatoes, cabbage, and vermicelli stew, 2 mixed, grain buns. Zhou Xiaodong smiled as well. I'll have the same. Wen Jingshu handed the money and coupons to Zhou Xiaodong. Braised pork goes best with white rice. Don't hold back on my account. Get white rice for all of us. Could you also get 2 extra portions of braised pork with potatoes packed in my lunchbox to take home for dinner? 2 portions to take away? You'll have quite a feast tonight. For my parents and second brother. My father tried the cafeteria's braised pork with potatoes once and hasn't stopped talking about it. Zhou Xiaodong shook her head with a smile and stepped up to order the food. Master Lu serving food was notoriously stingy with portions. His spoon piled high as he scooped up food, only to shake half of it off before pouring it into the bowl. Zhou Xiaodong stared hard at his hands, eyes wide. Embarrassed by her gaze, Master Lu finally added an extra half scoop. Zheng Yanyan stifled laughter beside her. The 3 carried their bowls to an empty table and sat down. Wen Jingshu picked up a chunk of braised pork. The meat was perfectly stewed, falling apart at the touch of chopsticks. The fatty portions melted on the tongue, while lean strips soaked rich gravy, releasing a savory meat flavor with every chew. The potatoes were thoroughly cooked, soft and creamy, easily mashed with chopsticks. Mixed into rice, they made every bowl more satisfying. "It's delicious," she said sincerely. "Of course it is. Master Lu isn't great at everything, but his braised pork is unbeatable." Zhang Yanyan bit into a steamed bun, chewed slowly, and lowered her voice. "Jingshu, I need to tell you something." "Go ahead, Sister Zheng." "Keep an eye on Zhao Weigua from our department." When Jingshu paused mid-reach for her food, Zhou Xiaodong leaned in, eyes bright, also speaking quietly. "I wanted to mention it this morning, but didn't get the chance." "That Zhao Weigua. Word is his father is with the Municipal Commerce Bureau." When Jingshu's brows furrowed slightly. "The Municipal Commerce Bureau? Deputy Section Chief of the Business Department, I think." Zhou Xiaodong dropped her voice even lower. "He was assigned to the purchasing department to gain grassroots experience. After a year or two here, he'll get promoted once he goes back." When Jingshu nodded, but said nothing. It all made sense now. That explained the front gate cigarettes from his father, and the way his eyes sized everyone up. He wasn't from an ordinary family. He doesn't act stuck up, though. Zhang Yanyan picked up a piece of potato. "He's gotten along fine with everyone since he arrived a few days ago. It's just that," she searched for a gentle way to phrase it. "He knows exactly how to curry favor with people." Zhou Xiaodong nodded vigorously. "Exactly. He knows how to work a crowd. He smiles and is polite to everyone, but you can tell his courtesy is carefully calculated, never more or less than needed." When Jingshu took another mouthful of rice, she recalled the way Zhao Weigua had looked at her earlier. Like a customer standing before shop shelves, appraising the price of every item one by one. "Thank you for the heads up, Sister Zheng Xiaodong." When Jingshu smiled. "I'll keep it in mind." "What about you, Sister Zheng?" she asked. "What brought you here?" Zhang Yanyan chewed slowly on braised pork and replied casually. "Me? I'm here to take it easy." Zhou Xiaodong nearly choked on her rice. "Don't look so surprised." Zhang Yanyan set down her chopsticks and counted on her fingers. "My husband is deputy factory director at the fertilizer plant. His monthly wage is enough to support our whole family. I come to work just to have something to do instead of staying idle. I hit my purchasing quotas each month, no more, no less. Push for more and I wear myself out. Do too little and it looks bad. Earlier in the office you were trimming your eyebrows. What's wrong with tidying up my appearance?" Zhang Yanyan spoke confidently. "We should still look presentable at work. Look at all the men in our department, dressed like drab gray mice. I feel sorry for their wives." Zhou Xiaodong laughed until her shoulders shook against the table. When Jingshu laughed too, and a thought crossed her mind. For all Zhang Yanyan's laid-back demeanor, she was actually quite sharp. She knew what she wanted and what she didn't. She maintained connections to meet her work targets without overextending herself. She kept work and private life clearly separate. It was a sensible way to live. After lunch, Zhou Xiaodong packed the lunchbox for Wen Jingshu and handed it over. "Here you go for tonight. Your father will love Master Lu's braised pork with potatoes." When Jingshu tucked the lunchbox into her satchel, Zhang Yanyan yawned and said she was heading to the staff dormitory for a short nap. Zhou Xiaodong linked arms with Wen Jingshu as they walked back. They stopped beneath the old locust tree in the yard after checking to make sure no one was nearby. "Jingshu, I hadn't finished talking earlier." There's more about our purchasing department. Ma Deshing's brother-in-law works at the Municipal Food Company." When Jingshu halted. "The food company?" "Yes. That's how he can secure goods from the Provincial Materials Bureau." Zhou Xiaodong lowered her voice. "He's a talkative man who struggles to keep secrets, so be cautious around him. He's not malicious, though." When Jingshu nodded. Mentally, she added another entry to her mental map of connections within the purchasing department. Ma Deshing brother-in-law at Municipal Food Company, access to Provincial Materials Bureau supplies. Lu Jieshi, long-standing connections within agricultural supply networks. Zhang Yanyan, husband, deputy director at fertilizer plant. Zhao Weigua, father, deputy section chief at Municipal Commerce Bureau, here to gain work experience ahead of promotion.